Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto destroys the elemental nations part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Day 1. It came faster than anyone could have prepared for. Amidst the sounds of war, clashing of kunai, and screams of death, everyone stopped fighting for but a single moment. When all looked up, the blood in their bodies froze. The skies darkened. The harsh bellows of noise, like righteous thunder, assaulted the very fabric of the heavens. For everyone there, it might as well have been an envoy of the Shinigami to come judge all Earth beneath its cruel gaze. That was a day that Uzumaki Naruto, Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko, former dead last of the Konoha no Sato Academy, and dreamer of the title of Hokage, saw when he had just finished defeating Sabaku no Gaara. In the skies, he heard the harsh drums of storms. In the skies, he saw the clouds part like a grand reception of a divine deity. In the skies, he saw a giant rock from beyond the realms of his world come crashing down upon not just Konoha, but also every other shinobi that laid within her walls. What Naruto remembered of that time was that Gaara and his siblings had retreated and someone had saved him. He did not know who, since he had been grabbed in a hurry, but as the descending rock from outside the realm of this earth fell further and further to the ground, a feeling deep within his gut made the young genin wonder about one of Jiraiya's lessons before the damned sage had pushed him off that cliff. If death was going to come for you the next day, how would you live for now? The great rock crashed into the ground, and what followed after was an earthquake the likes that Naruto had never seen. The sky exploded with hot fire as thousands of flaming stones crashed from Konoha to Iwa. Trees were pulled from the ground like fickle grass while dust and wind collided with Naruto's body. Again, he did not remember much. The adrenaline from his body was leaving him and his consciousness was failing him. What he heard before he passed out was the sounds of screaming from the person who had been carrying him. Day 2. It was not much better. Naruto woke up, not in the hospital, but underneath a pile of fallen trees which had, thankfully, not crushed him beneath their weight. His entire body still hurt, and he could see neither left from right nor up from down. Underneath those trees he stayed, his body too hurt for him to even scream for help, and his wounds too great to even save himself. There, he passed out again. Day 3 was a little better. His body still hurt, but he had begun feeling a bit better. Naruto had figured this to be normal since had always healed quickly. Why would now be any different? Of course, it was still dark outside. His little shelter of fallen trees obviously told him that much. Who would have thought that Iruka's stupid survival lessons would actually come back to haunt him? Naruto's stomach rumbled. He was hungry. He couldn't remember the last time he had eaten a proper meal. He wondered what was going on outside. The blonde groaned as he tried to move his arms and legs, but they stubbornly refused to listen to him. He was still stuck and he was still in a lot of pain. Damn, perhaps he would have to give himself a reminder that releasing that much chakra at once was not a good thing. Once he saw that he was still incapable of doing something, the blonde fell back asleep again. Day 4 was much better than Day 3. Oh sure, Naruto couldn't move too much, but at least his body had recovered enough that he could at least get to a soldier pill. He always hated the damn things. They tasted like a mix between a veggie roll and a sour tart. It also wasn't exactly defined as a food supplement, but it gave his teeth something to chew on and his throat something to swallow. Maybe this would help him recover faster. Shouldn't more chakra flow mean more healing? As Naruto laid in his little shelter, the cold, dusty air blasting outside like a harsh tornado, he wondered about Kakashi, Sakura, and yes, even Sasuke. He wondered if they were all right. Had they seen and heard the large stone fall as well? Day 5, Naruto found a problem that no amount of soldier pills could fix. He was getting thirsty, and he had to really use the bathroom. Unfortunately, the scope that he could move his body was very small. It was better compared to yesterday, but not the best right now. How he wished he could scratch his nose or any other part of his body that irritated him. Unfortunately, he couldn't do anything about any of those things. Instead, the only thing he could do was feel heavy wind smack against his face, carrying with it dust, grass, and small stones. Of course, Naruto had to let those things hit him as well. What could he do when he couldn't even move? As gross as it might sound, Naruto was actually wondering if he could drink his own piss just to not be thirsty anymore. Yup, that would definitely be something to never tell anyone else as long as he lived. Later that night, Naruto groaned as he opened his eyes when something smacked against his forehead. He slowly opened his eyes and realized he had fallen asleep again. Ugh, his throat was beginning to hurt. As Naruto began contemplating his situation more, another smack landed on his head. What the? He said. He looked up. It was dark outside. Well, to be fair, he couldn't tell if it was light or dark for the past couple of days. There was too much fallen debris to tell otherwise. However, he noticed that the smacks against his head were wet. His eyes brightened. One smack came. Then another. Then another. And another. And another. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki's eyes brightened when he heard the blessed sound of heavy rain. Soon hundreds upon hundreds of water droplets fell through the trees. Oh man, Naruto would have to build a wooden statue to whatever god had his back at the moment. A grunt here, a sharp stab of pain there, and Naruto finally got a comfortable spot. He opened his mouth, with pain, and blissfully swallowed the rainwater that had been given to him. He admitted that it started kind of odd, but he wasn't about to look a gift horse in the mouth with survival as his main concern. Day 6. This was the worst day because Naruto woke up and realized he didn't have to use the bathroom anymore. Yup, definitely not telling anyone about this. Ever. Day 7. Naruto found himself facing another problem. Namely, he found the problem to be his growing stomach. Granted though, it had been doing this ever since day 1 of his time here, but now it was really beginning to get to him. He would have liked to rub his stomach in some vain effort to console it that he would take care of its concerns soon, but kinda needed moving arms to do that. If the Kyuubi Jinchuriki had to say one thing about being trapped like this, along with being hungry, then it was the sound of hearing potential food sources skittering over the fallen trees. Still, at least he could move his body enough to scratch an itch that had been bothering him. His pants had also dried up from the time he had relieved himself. Ugh, it was a pain to even think about. Day 8. Naruto was woken not by the sound of harsh winds and arid dust, but to the sounds of plentiful rainfall. Happy to have some water, he tried to maneuver as best he could to catch anything, but as a raindrop fell past him, he heard the ground hiss next to him. His eyes turned and he stiffened when he saw the water, like pure acid, melting the ground next to him. Another drop fell. This time it landed on his orange jacket. Naruto shivered when he saw the liquid slowly eat away at his clothing. Frantic, and wrought with pain, Naruto groaned as he tried to move himself to a place that had more shelter. More and more raindrops fell down to the spot where he had laid previous, as he watched the ground melt away from each strike of sky water that struck it. The blonde closed his eyes and prayed to whatever gods were listening that this rainfall would stop soon. Day 9, the rain had stopped by the middle of the day. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief that he had kept both himself and his clothes from turning into melted pork bones for a bowl of soup. Unfortunately, the covering of trees that had been his shelter had weakened a little. Naruto could see just a bit of the outside, but it was no different. He could not see hide nor ray of the sun. All that covered the sky was wind filled with dust. Naruto was still hungry. Day 10 let Naruto go out on record to say that he was pretty damn hungry. He hadn't eaten for 10 days and the healing of his body was already taking more energy than even he wanted it to. So, with that being the case, please don't judge him when he crunched the 3 or 4 crickets that had wandered near him. Yup, this was also another secret to never tell anyone. Oh yeah, and don't judge him for the ants either. They shouldn't have crawled on him, damn it. Slowly, between eating insects, pissing his pants, and testing whether water was safe to drink or not, Naruto was not sure what day he was on after day 10. He had kind of lost count. Hell, he wondered how many weeks had passed. However, he could finally move his arms and legs. He tried to lean up and though sore, succeeded. Finally, I hope I never see another insect for the rest of my life, Databeo. Probably gonna have to avoid Shino too, the young genin said. Naruto maneuvered his body so that he was sat comfortably with his folded legs. Now then, what should I do? I don't know what's going on outside. I also don't know where anyone else is. Kakashi-sensei would say that I need some kind of plan. Well, I can do that. I hope, the blonde thought. Taking a simple stick from one of the trees, Naruto began trying to map and plan as best he could. It made his head hurt, but there was no getting around it. This also was his only shelter. Let's see, if I'm here after that guy or whatever carried me, then maybe I was there? If I was there, then the village should be this way, I think. Arg, why me? Naruto exclaimed as he drew in the dirt with as much light as he could find. He definitely couldn't stay here. The falling acid was starting to eat away at his cover. There would really be no difference between him and some melted pork bones if he stayed. Alright, I'll rest the night here one more time, then I'll make my way out first thing in the morning. I hope everyone's alright, Naruto said before he noticed he was talking to himself. Oh god, he was going insane. When the next day came, Naruto tested his body by raising one leg and then raising the other. He did this a couple of times and both seemed to work just fine. There was still some lingering stiffness and pain in them both, but nowhere near as unbearable as last week. He was at least sure he could make it back to Konoha with ease and then find anyone else. Hopefully, he could meet up with Sakura or Kakashi. Hell, At this point he'd even take Sasuke of all people. Anyway, what came next was Naruto's test of his arms. He waved them up and down while he flexed his fingers back and forth. He groaned as bones snapped and cracked against each other. His arms felt heavy and his fingers felt tense, but he could still move them. Yosh, let's try and get back to the village, Naruto thought. Kami, he couldn't wait to go home, take a shower, and heat up a nice cup of ramen. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki decided to wait for a few hours to let the dusty wind settle down. He was already lost and he didn't feel the need to get more lost. While he waited, Naruto decided that he should practice some of that forward-thinking stuff Kakashi always lectured him about. In the event that he got lost, then he would have to make plans to find another means of shelter. He doubted there would be another stack of logs for him to hide in. So, Naruto spent the next 3 hours coming up with contingency plans. Once he figured he had enough of them, he rolled over and crawled out from beneath the logs that had been his home for the past week or so. Harsh winds blew against his face as he crawled, but he figured they weren't going to get much better than now. Naruto stood to his feet and peered out into the world. When he did, his eyes widened. It was worse than even he had assumed. All of the trees had been toppled over and the leaves had died and withered away on the ground. There was nothing but a barren wasteland for miles covered by dust, dirt, and broken trees. There was just nothing. The young blonde shook his head and decided to scan his surroundings. As he had expected, he didn't know where he was. He couldn't see a sign of the village or any other living soul. Thankfully, he had planned for this. When he turned back to his home, he noticed that indeed the acid rain had been eating the bark. He couldn't stay here. If he did, then he all but bet that he wouldn't have a shelter by tomorrow morning. Which way should I go? He asked himself. What was the right or wrong answer here? Oh well, perhaps he should just follow the map he made in the sand a few days ago. Either way, he could only pray that he had some good luck for once in his life. This would have been the perfect time for him to create some shadow clones and send them out to find the village, but he still felt the effects of chakra exhaustion. He doubted he'd be using jutsu anytime soon. Oh well, I guess I'll go this way, Naruto said as he headed towards the east of his log home. He was already praying that he made the right choice. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki continued in his path. The dust and sand irritated his feet, and he covered his eyes from the turbulent winds rushing against his face. The longer he walked, the longer he wondered if he was the only person left in existence. He spotted fallen kunai, broken corpses stripped of their skin and flesh, and torn shinobi attire representing the battle that had taken place about a week ago. While Naruto journeyed in the direction he thought best, a sudden rumble thundered through the sky above him. He looked up at the smoke and dust-ridden dark yellow skies. Lightning pushed through each cloud and he knew what was coming. More acid rain would be falling. This time, there would be no fallen trees to protect him. He was also sure that he was too far away to run back to his shelter, not that he could even find it if he tried. Fortunately, luck seemed to be with the young Uzumaki that day. As the sounds of thunder and flashes of lightning rolled across the open sky, he could have sworn he saw something large in the distance. He didn't know what exactly since the dust was pushing against his face, but as he drew closer and closer his eyes grew wider and wider. Before him, a massive wall made of great stone appeared in front of him. So tall was it that, from where he stood, it might have reached up to the very heavens if it could. As Naruto touched the wall, he gasped. Relief filled his mind and hope filled his heart. He recognized the wall as a part of the Konoha walls which guarded the village. While he wasn't inside the village yet, he had still managed to make it before the rain fell. With any luck, he could at least tell Sakura and Kakashi, and maybe even Sasuke, what had happened to him. Then they could tell him what the hell had happened during his time away. With renewed vigor in his step, Naruto limped to the front gates of Konoha while he used the walls for support. He was still hurt after all. Yet, in all his joy, perhaps Naruto should have wondered why it was so quiet. Whether for 10 minutes or 30, the young genin finally made it to the front of the village, and what he saw made him shiver. The giant gates which guarded his home, one of them wore kunai and shuriken like a young child wears dirt from hours of playing. The other was torn off its hinges. Due to the wind, it made a loud, almost creepy and unsettling, creaking noise. It actually looked like it would fall over if given enough time. Bodies littered the ground as did an assortment of shinobi tools. The only way Naruto was able to identify anything was by the clothes which hung to the bones of their slowly being engulfed by the sand. Konoha shinobi, Suna shinobi, Oto shinobi, and even some others from other nations were there. Yet what worried Naruto now was that there was not a single official monitoring the gate, or even helping survivors. There was just no one. No one except him. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki moved through the corpses, shivering when he accidentally stepped on and snapped some brittle bones. He tried to move through them all carefully so as not to disrespect those who had fallen, but dare he say the only thing being disrespected were the dogs that didn't get to this free buffet of skeletons. With trepidation, Naruto walked past the gates of Konoha. When he stepped inside, he honestly wondered if being outside would have been preferable. Every time he tried to find some hint of optimism in his situation, it felt like some god or divine deity was making fun of him and crushing his naive, mortal thought processes. Konoha, his home and the place where he dreamt of becoming Hokage, seemed as if the very essence of life had perished within it. Broken shops and stalls, cracked windows and fallen bottles littered the left side of the street. Men, women, and children, each killed in some horrific manner which made Naruto glad he wasn't there to witness their demise, littered the right. It all almost made the young man drop to his knees. What happened? Naruto thought to himself, as he traversed what was once his home. While the genin walked through the streets, he took notice of the way some houses seemed to have crashed down into others. It was almost like some crazy, natural disaster had struck the place while he was gone. Was it that rain stuff from before? The last Uzumaki asked. Naruto remembered what it had done to some of the logs that had been his home last week. He supposed it wasn't impossible for that to happen to the rest of these structures. Unfortunately, Naruto noticed that the wind seemed to pick up. It actually blew with such ferocity that he had a bit of trouble standing against it. Then he heard the hissing of the ground next to him. When he looked down, all he noticed was a smoking hole in the street. It was the size of a drop of rain. "Kyuso! It's gonna start raining again," he exclaimed to himself. Naruto picked up his pace to get to his home faster, but he absently wondered what had become of his apartment if this was what happened to the rest of the village. As he ran, he desperately tried not to look at the bodies of people lining up the streets. He was sure he'd vomit otherwise. The Kyubi Jinchuriki arrived at his apartment complex. He could tell by the open deck that he stood on as a child. The rain was beginning to come down a little harder, and the ground began hissing and smoking just like the time he was trapped beneath those logs. He made it. Oh! He grimaced. That said, his joy aside, Naruto found himself still anxious. Parts of his complex seemed destroyed. One tenant's bedroom crashed down into another's bathroom. A pile of bones laid in a corner, and Naruto wished not to know how those came to be. Still, it looked like his part of the building was still standing for the moment. As Naruto walked up the stairs, he shivered when he felt the metal stairs creak and lean to the side. It was almost as if to say that they couldn't support his weight and would topple down to the ground. Thankfully, they held and he made it to his floor. He then limped his way to his door. As the Kyubi Jinchuriki expected, he didn't have to worry about fishing out his keys. His door was busted down with more kunai and shuriken lined against its wooden frame. By the time he got through the door, the rain, thunder, and lightning were in full swing. Naruto panted and fell to his knees. The young boy was exhausted. His body ached from his inflicted wounds. On top of his fallen door, he caught his breath for about 2 or 3 minutes. The sounds of turbulent weather outside his home constantly assaulted his ears. When the Kyubi Jinchuriki felt he had rested enough, he pulled himself to his feet with the help of his apartment wall. As he did so, his eyes stared out into the village. He hopelessly watched as more rain fell down, striking the barren ground and lifeless rooftops of former homes. Smoke expelled from the ground. It was melting once again just as Naruto feared. Sakura, Kakashi-sensei, team, I hope you guys are alright, Naruto thought. The boy stretched his sore arms. The harsh winds from outside blew an eerie howl in front of his open doorway. Naruto feared the wind would blow the rain into his house. So, he picked the kunai and shuriken off his door and slowly proceeded to pick it up. This wasn't an easy task, the genin knew his body hadn't fully healed yet. The door also wasn't very light. Nevertheless, it wasn't like he was as helpless as before. He trained for many hours of his life. He could lift a simple door. It took some work, but Naruto finally got the door back in place. Of course, it didn't stay there perfectly. In fact, it didn't close the opening completely. The door had been blown off its hinges, so he placed it sideways and hoped he could find some drapes to fill up the opening parts. Wait, that might work, Naruto suddenly thought as he got a smile on his face. He picked up some of the fallen kunai and grabbed the tablecloth that he used for his table. He placed the cloth over the door and stabbed the ends into the wall with the kunai from earlier. It was shoddy work, and the blonde worried when he saw the wind blow against the cloth. However, the door and the cloth remained firm and showed no signs of failing. Naruto exhaled tiredly before he surveyed his surroundings. Perhaps it was because he was thankful to get away from the outside, but he had not fully acknowledged his return until now. His house was in shambles. Couches and chairs were thrown everywhere. His refrigerator was open, all of the food inside it gone. Hell, his home looked like a tornado had blown right through it. Granted, Naruto wasn't the cleanest individual, but even he didn't think he was this bad. Another sigh, Naruto walked into his apartment and flicked on the light switch. Nothing. Was the blonde expecting different? No, not really. The young Uzumaki then walked over to his kitchen sink. He turned the knobs and to his surprise the sound of water graced his ears. Well, at least that works. Don't know for how long though, he thought. At that moment, Naruto didn't care if faucet water counted as drinking water or not. All he knew was that he had water, and he was thirsty. He dipped his head beneath the faucet mouth and drank the flowing water that he used to clean his dishes. It sure as hell wasn't the best tasting water, but it filled Naruto's throat all the same. At this point, this was the single greatest blessing he had all day. With his thirst quenched, Naruto stared at his faucet. In a rare moment of forward thinking, the blonde frowned. His water worked for now, but there was no guarantee it would work later. Hell, he couldn't even be sure it was going to work 10, 30, or even 50 minutes from now. Plus, he had no food. Even all his precious ramen had been taken. If someone was alive, he was going to make them rue the day they touched Uzumaki Naruto's ramen. That vow aside, Naruto looked in his cabinets and cupboards. Thankfully, the day before his duel with Niji during the Chunin exams, he had gone shopping. Sure, all of his food was gone, most likely raided during the Tsunodo invasion of Konoha, but he still had a few gallons of jugs that housed some inconsequential things. He grabbed the jugs and dumped the contents. They weren't water, so he figured he wouldn't need them now. He cleaned them as thoroughly as he could so no lasting fluids remained. Once that was done, Naruto spent the better part of an hour filling up to 30 jugs with water from his faucet. He wished he could keep them cold, but the refrigerator was broken and the power was out. Lukewarm it was then. Once the 30 jugs were full, Naruto chuckled. He then organized the jugs of water into categories. 5 jugs would go to bathing water. Another 5 would be drinking water. Another 5 would be for cooking water. The last 3 would be for whatever else he needed. Hopefully, that lasted him for a little while until he managed to find some help. Told you that D in survival training wasn't fair, Iruka-sensei. Naruto mentally congratulated himself. However, when the thought of Iruka entered his mind, the smile dropped from Naruto's face. Back when everything was normal, he would have hated seeing Iruka coming in the distance just to scold him. Now, he'd gladly let himself get pulled by the ear if it meant seeing the Chunin who gave him his first headband again. Unfortunately, Naruto couldn't dwell on those thoughts for long. He felt the harsh wind outside his windows and he realized that he had no windows. They must have been blown off when the giant rock crashed into the earth. Now, they couldn't stop the rough winds and rain from blowing into his house. Just great, Naruto thought to himself. The genin picked up his jugs of water and placed them in the cabinets below his sink. He walked through his apartment. Thankfully, it seemed like nothing else was damaged. Whoever ransacked his home, they were quick to take what they felt was important and left. Naruto entered his bathroom and ripped off the shower curtains. No real use in keeping them up now, if all he had for water was in jugs. He grabbed some more rusty kunai and shuriken. The boy stood before the open window frames in his living room/kitchen and blocked them with the shower curtains. There, that should hold for now, Naruto said to himself as he watched the curtains flutter in weird ways from the rushing winds. All he hoped was that the wind didn't blow the rain onto the curtains. Now, he couldn't be certain, but he was pretty sure his shower curtains weren't acid-proof. Tired and hungry, Naruto made his way into his bedroom. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. So far, everything looked normal. Nothing appeared damaged. A few things fell over in the earthquake, but everything was still functional as far as he could see. Naruto looked at his TV. Okay, well, everything was functional that wasn't electronic. After he assessed his room for any potential threats, Naruto walked back to his bathroom. He opened his medicine cabinet, and though he was no medic, he hoped he could at least clean some of his wounds and disinfect them. While he healed fast, he'd rather not get sick. Naruto grabbed some disinfectant spray and some cotton swabs with medicinal alcohol. He then headed back to his room and took off his clothes. As a man, Naruto tried not to let the stinging sensation of the spray and alcohol bother him too much. He cleaned the wounds that he could find and wiped himself off with a towel that, luckily, he cleaned a few days ago. The genin didn't know where he threw the towel after he was done. All he knew was that he fell asleep on his bed, the sounds of the rain and wind lulling him to sleep. Crash. Naruto was startled awake by something loud. Worried, he slowly looked out the window and gasped when he saw one of the large buildings give way and fall over. He watched in shock as its melted wood sent it bashing into other buildings. A loud, resounding boom shook the ground as dust picked up over the area where the structure had fallen. Wood exploded everywhere as more rain continued to fall. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki swallowed the lump in his throat. If anyone was alive, he really hoped they weren't over there. Hesitantly, Naruto fell back asleep for a few more hours. Those hours were blissful for him. At least he wasn't under a group of fallen trees anymore. When the blonde woke up, he noticed it had stopped raining. There was still the sound of harsh wind battering his apartment windows, but the acid rain must have stopped. Cautiously, Naruto slipped out of bed and walked over his apartment's back deck. He surveyed the damage to the roof, and it looked like the acid rain hadn't melted through it yet. At the very least, Naruto hoped that the apartment's rooftop would hold until he found someplace else to live. With that address, Naruto now focused his mind on another task. I really need something to eat, he thought as he made his way back to the kitchen. He poured himself a few cups of water and downed them, hoping that the water would fill him up for now. Not the best breakfast he'd ever had, but the young man wasn't in the proper position to complain. With his breakfast finished, Naruto tested his body. He was still sore and he felt a little weak, but he wasn't helpless. Perhaps he could venture outside and look for supplies. It was better than doing nothing. If he could help it, Uzumaki Naruto was not about to feast on ants again. Still, where would be a good place to start? Kakashi always told him he never thought anything through and that he ought to change that. Something builds maturity and all that. That said, Naruto already knew the danger of going outside, so perhaps a little forethought wouldn't be so bad. The young blonde walked back into his bedroom and came back with a notepad and a pen. Okay, first things first, I guess I should find food. That's important. Maybe a map too, so I don't get lost. I used to know this whole place well when I pranked people, but I don't know what's changed around here. Maybe some cleaner water if I can find it. Lastly, help anyone in the village who's still alive, Naruto thought as he wrote down on his notepad. It wasn't the most developed plan in the world, but it was good enough for Naruto at least. So, with his notes jotted down, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki wore some heavy clothes and picked up his goggles. Never did he think he would put these on again after he graduated from the academy. Unfortunately, he had to tie his headband someplace else since having both on his head at the same time was way too much. So he decided to tie it around his waist. That left his head free for his goggles. Once his attire was sorted, Naruto grabbed 3 backpacks. He had carried that many before in his life and he figured he could do it now despite how weak he felt. He hoped he could make it to a convenience store. All the food there should still be packaged. He only hoped it hadn't gone bad from the week he'd been gone. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki also prepared weapons. Though he was sure no one from his own village would attack him, he did have some reservations. Plus, he figured if anyone from the invading forces was still around then he could take them out as well, or at the very least defend himself. Yash! Let's do this, the young man said. He pulled the shower curtains from his window and slipped outside. The wind and dust blasted in his face, but the goggles helped against them. He jumped on top of the roof and stared out into the desolate wasteland that had been his home. Uzumaki Naruto began his search. Naruto groaned as the rough winds rebuffed his advances. The storms had grown more turbulent since he'd been asleep. He constantly wiped his goggles from the dust and dirt that clung to them. When he looked up at the sky, he couldn't even see the sun or moon. All around him was brown, acid-filled skin with bolts of lightning mixed into the clouds. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki's mission for today was simple. Find food, find a map, help survivors. Those were his goals. He prayed he would not stray from them. He just hoped that he wasn't the only one who walked amongst the bones of the deceased. Each snap caused by Naruto's steps made his throat dry. He knew not if they were enemy, ally, or civilian, but he tried to tread carefully. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki didn't go too far from his home. If it started to rain, then he could at least run back to his shelter. He decided to take the couple of buildings he saw still standing across from his apartment complex. With any luck, they wouldn't collapse on him. Through the dusty winds, Naruto grabbed one of the door handles and twisted it. Locked, he grumbled. He decided to try his luck. He backed on the door. "Oh, anyone in there?" he called out. The blonde received nothing in reply. He looked left. He looked right. He saw no one coming or going. So he grabbed a kunai and broke the doorknob. The wind blasted the door open and Naruto stepped inside. The door made an ominous creak. Once he was inside, Naruto grabbed a nearby coat rack. He closed the door and shoved the rack against the wall to keep the wind from opening it again. He then turned his attention back to the interior of the house. Naruto wouldn't deny it. This house looked worse than his. Furniture had been tossed every other way. Broken picture frames and living ornaments were laid out across the floor. Curtains were thrown from one room to the next. For a time, Naruto wondered if this was the result of the storm outside or from the invasion. Now that he thought about it, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki felt rather foolish. If anyone was still alive, then they shouldn't be here. They should have all been evacuated during the invasion. Naruto placed 2 of his backpacks near the door. He quickly headed into the kitchen. He decided to forego the refrigerator. Right now, he needed things which could last without needing to be cold. So he opened the cabinets. Yes. He smiled as he noticed them filled with cans of food. It didn't look very appetizing, but he'd take what he could get. Naruto stuffed the cans into one of his empty backpacks. His house was close by as well. He could probably hurry back to his apartment. He could drop them all off and set out again. Naruto decided to do that. Over the next hour, he ran back and forth between his home and the houses near him. He collected canned food, bottles of water, chips, bread, and anything else he could find. Hell, he even took the towels and clothes from the homes where he could find them. If Naruto found a female survivor, he would just not explain the details of how he came across a woman's unmentionables. Just the thought of him getting beaten to an inch of his life by Sakura made him shudder. As a former scavenger, Naruto knew not what he needed, but he knew what he could take. He took everything that he could find. He looked beneath the sinks and picked up cleaning supplies. He picked up eating utensils. The knives could easily be crafted into weapons if he knew how to craft weapons. On his next trip out, Naruto walked through a store. He looted the place of packed bentos, more water, food, chips, and anything else of convenience. Thankfully, the second part of his mission had been completed. He found a map of the general areas of Konoha. He would need that. He tore it off the wall and began marking most of the places he had been to. When Naruto walked outside, he grunted as he covered his face. The winds had gotten stronger. They were so strong that piles of bones from the dead were being flung in his face. It pushed against him so hard that he fell on his back. Kyuso, what's with the weather today? Naruto thought. Somehow, Naruto made it back to his home. He pushed the door into its frame and tied the window curtains just as he had done last time. Sore and stiff, he fell to the floor of his living room. Made it, he groaned. Once he caught his breath, Naruto began the meticulous task of trying to sort and arrange all that he had looted. Guilt rushed through his body at the thought of what he stole from his fellow villagers, but he'd write the apology once he survived. Okay, toilet paper and soap can go in the bathroom with the bathing water. I got some shampoo and all that funny stuff that perverted sage told me girls like in their hair. I have all the clothes I looted in my bedroom. I guess I'll need some boxes for those databale, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki said aloud. Naruto sorted all that he had even though he had no idea what some of the shit did. Some of the medicine pills he found in bathroom cabinets were written gibberish to him, but maybe someone else knew what good the shit did. Soon night settled over his apartment. Thankfully, it was a rain-free night. Naruto filled his stomach with bags of chips and the occasional sweet bar that he found. Once he was full, washed himself off and climbed into bed. The next morning, Naruto had breakfast. It was a shitty breakfast, but his stomach didn't care either way. He heard the odd sound of pots and pans scraping across the ground. He stared at the map he looted. Alright, I guess I have enough food, water, and stuff. Kakashi-sensei would probably tell me to only take what I needed. Still, I'll go mad if I stay in here all day, Naruto thought to himself as he threw some of his wrappers in the trash. With that being the case, Naruto decided now was a good time. The goal of today wouldn't be looting. He'd look for anyone else who knew what the hell was going on. Yosh! Best way to cover the area is good old shadow clones, he said. Naruto pushed himself away from the table and crossed the tips of his fingers. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, shadow clone technique, Naruto called out. Unfortunately, what the young genin was expecting he didn't get. Instead, what he got was a scream racked with pain, torment, and agony. He fell to the floor and gripped his body so hard that he tore his white t-shirt. His body felt like it was burning. It felt like hundreds of ants had burrowed into his skin and crawled through his being. He clenched his chest as his body seemed like it was being torn in two. For what seemed like hours, his body experienced the worst kind of agony he had ever felt in years. Slowly, the pain subsided and Naruto breathed easy. What was that? Once the pain was gone, the young man stood up. He looked at his hands. I can't use jutsu? He asked aloud. Being the stubborn boy that he was, Uzumaki Naruto tried again. The pain returned. This time, it felt even worse than before. When Naruto felt it fade, he nodded. Yup, no more casting jutsu for a little bit. Though disheartened, Naruto placed his clothes on. Oh well, it looked like he was doing this the old-fashioned way. He left his house and entered the streets. As Naruto walked, he made a point to get some better shoes. Walking in the dusty wind with open-toed sandals was not the most comfortable thing in the world. Nevertheless, he pressed on. As he walked through the barren streets of Konoha, Naruto tried to keep the hope up that he might find someone. Even as he stared at the gruesome and macabre scene in front of him of bodies lying motionless in alleyways, he pressed on. Each person he expected, he prayed it wouldn't be the face of someone he knew. With the hot wind on his face, Naruto held up his map as best he could. The wind wasn't helping. Suddenly, the blonde heard a creak. He looked to his left, and cursed as he saw another building crash down beneath its own weight. He jumped out of the way as it fell into another, and brought that one down as well. The shattered remains of the structures littered the streets. What was happening to his village, his home? Naruto stared and stared, not knowing that his hands had been gripping the sides of his map intensely. He then looked down to the ground. For so long he had tried to push the thought away. It was the thought which kept him up at night. It was the thought that haunted the steps he walked and the places he looked. What if Uzumaki Naruto was the only one left in Konoha? What if Uzumaki Naruto was the only one left in the entire world? Okay, maybe that last one was a little extreme, but that was how he felt. Between the sound of his steps, the howling of the wind, and the fall of the rain, nothing else answered Naruto's ears. It was like everyone just vanished off the face of the planet. Naruto shook his head and exhaled. He didn't want to think about those things. Instead, he continued on his journey. He had left early in the morning, or what he assumed was morning, so he would have the time to explore. Well, explore until he found something dangerous. Naruto walked through Konoha. The distant echoes of those times a week ago called out to him. How odd. For years he had wished for the people to stop with the glares and the backtalk. Now, he would have gladly embraced it if it meant having people to even talk about him again. Pretty soon, Naruto found himself walking down a familiar street. This was the road he took to Ichiraku Ramen. He didn't know what he would closer he got to the commercial district, the more debris he found. Clothes were covered in dust and dirt. Some were eaten through by acid rain. More bodies littered the ground. Konoha, Suna, and Oto flak jackets covered in blood laid everywhere. Naruto even saw a few civilian clothes, both from adults and children, scattered across the ground. He tried not to think about it. He just kept walking, questions forming in his head. Would his favorite restaurant still be standing? Were old man Tucci and his daughter Ayam still alive? He received those answers and, to be honest, he wished he hadn't. Naruto stared at Ichiraku Ramen, or where it should have been standing. A large pile of wood and debris laid where it once stood. It seemed most of it had been carried off by the wind. He could still make out the Ichiraku sign. It laid in broken tatters on the ground, sand slowly began to cover it. It was strange. It was almost as if the world was trying to say all that Naruto had loved never existed in the first place. A curse, Naruto tore through the broken wood of Ichiraku Ramen. This his body begged him not to. He pulled heavy wood and tore things apart. His muscles burned as he worked. His breath grew short from the mask that protected his face from the hot winds. He worked. And worked. And worked. There were no signs that Tucci or Ayam were even alive. Naruto worked until his fingers bled from the sharp nails of the wood. All he was met with was a ground full of sand and dirt. The young genin clenched his fists. Tears threatened to fall down his face. He fell to his knees. I am Nichin, Tuchiajikan, Naruto thought as he laid in the middle of the remains of the ramen shop. Once he collected himself, Naruto decided to move on. He grabbed a pencil marked an X over the map. Suddenly, Naruto heard something break nearby. He turned to the source of the noise. It came from inside one of the sturdier buildings. Hello? Naruto called. No answer. Worried but hopeful, the Kyubi Jinchuriki walked over to the building. From the look of it, it was some type of family-owned restaurant. The windows were smashed open and the door was knocked down. Cautiously, Naruto grabbed a kunai from his leg pouch and held it. He then slowly stepped inside. His feet cracked the glass on the floor as he stepped over the fallen door. As he stepped inside, he took account of the room. Tables laid everywhere, broken and unused. Tablecloth littered the ground. He shivered when he saw some of it covered in blood. He also noticed a few bodies laying on the ground or leaning against the wall. He also noticed what he assumed were the bodies of the owners. One was laid out over the table. The other was cut between the customer area and the kitchen area. He turned his head away. "Hello?" Naruto called. He still received no answer. Was he going crazy from the isolation? It was quite possible. Naruto checked for what he could, but he wanted to further investigate the noise. He would have left it alone, but he noticed spotted trails of dried blood running from the entrance of the restaurant to the back of the establishment. He followed the trail. He stepped over the bodies and passed through the kitchen. As much as Naruto wished to raid the place, he most likely have to come back later. He hadn't planned on scavenging today, so he brought only one backpack. The young genin followed the trail of blood and noticed it led up a staircase. It was most likely the family's home after the business hours. Slowly and cautiously he walked up the stairs. The blonde gripped his kunai tight. His heart thumped. Sweat poured down from his brow. What if it was an enemy? Naruto steadied his breaths. He continued up the flight of stairs. The trail of blood continued up. Once he made it to the top, he noticed how many destroyed things there were. Nevertheless, he kept his focus on the blood in front of him. It led into one of the bedrooms. Why would it lead there? As Naruto stepped into the bedroom, he widened his eyes. He now realized what the source of the noise was. In a corner of the room, laid a passed-out woman. Her wounds were severe. Multiple cuts and bruises laid on her body. Her unkempt hair sprawled out against the torn bed sheets. Her clothes, destroyed and torn in numerous places, barely held together. Naruto blinked in wonder. It's Hinata-sensei. Keikei Kara Kurinai-san, he thought as he finally remembered her name. Naruto hadn't met the Jonin a lot. Hell, if he remembered correctly, he only saw her maybe 2 times. He saw her once when she came to pick up her team at the academy, and he saw her during the preliminary round after the Forest of Death. It was when she convinced him to take that medicine Hinata gave him. Kurinai looked bad. Like, she looked really bad. Naruto wondered how she was even alive at this point. Her quivering lips and irregular pants made him nervous. She looked borderline dead. It was as if she barely held on to the flickering flames of her life. Naruto pulled down his mask. "Kurinai-san?" he slowly called out. She didn't answer him. He took a step closer. Though she was an ally from his village and he was overjoyed to see her, he didn't want to startle her. This woman in front of him was an elite kunoichi. She could do away with him pretty easily if he wasn't careful. The Kyubi Jinchuriki reached for her arm. As soon as he touched it, the young boy became thankful that the female Jonin was delirious. Had she not been, the kunai in her hands would have swiped into his head instead of across his hair. Her movement was so fast he thought a white light blew past his eyes. Naruto gasped and stumbled. Kurinai panted and swung her kunai back and forth. Her hair covered her eyes, but the lone Uzumaki could see the sweat pouring down the side of her face. Her eyes were unfocused, her body twitched sporadically, and her swings were unrefined. "Kurinai-san, it's me, Naruto. Let me help you. We don't have time for this databao," he exclaimed. Unfortunately, the Jonin didn't stop swinging her arms. Naruto saw the blood seep down from her wounds. If she didn't stop soon, he would wonder if he could even save her. However, his chance would come soon. Slowly, Kurinai stopped swinging the kunai. Her energy drained, she fell forward across the floor. The kunai rolled out of her hands. When Naruto checked on her, he stilled. Hinata-sensei had fallen unconscious. He touched her forehead. Her head's hot. She must be really sick. I've got her out of here, Naruto thought. A boom of thunder and crash of lightning startled the blonde when he finished his thought. He looked outside and the sky darkened. Fuck, he had to get back home. It looked like it was going to rain again. He didn't know how much time he had left. Back home he had at least some form of medicine from the cabinets he had looted. If she stayed here, although Naruto wasn't a doctor, he felt she would die. He ran out of the room and found an old t-shirt. He ripped it up and slowly tied it around Kurinai's mouth. He then ran into the bathrooms of the building. He didn't have time to read, he just stuffed medicine containers, bandage wraps, medicinal alcohol, and anything else he could find. He'd have to come back for the food later if he needed it. That said, considering he was about to have another mouth to feed, it seemed very likely. Once that was done, Naruto placed his goggles over Kurinai's eyes. He had to admit, she did look kind of funny with them on. He then pulled up his face mask and tightened the hood of his jacket. The winds got stronger. The sky grew darker. It wouldn't be long now. Naruto securely picked up Kurinai and placed her on his back. He groaned. Damn it, how long was it going to take for him to fully heal? Plus, he wouldn't say this out loud ever, but Hinata's sensei was kinda heavy. He also tried not to think about how soft she felt in his hands. He definitely tried not to think about certain things against his back. Damn it, Ero Sennin. Now I'm gonna become like you. Naruto groaned. Unpleasant, but slightly adultish thoughts aside, Naruto slowly made his way downstairs with Kurenai on his back. He adjusted his grip on her legs. He heard the way her breathing hitched. There was no time to lose. Once Naruto made it back into the kitchen area, he beelined it for the front of the restaurant. As soon as he stepped outside, his knees buckled. Gusts filled with the destruction of the village blew in his face. Thunder roared across the sky, and in the distance, he could make out swirling tornadoes in the distance of the village. At least 3 of them raged side by side. The storm grew stronger. Don't worry, Kurenai-san. I'll get us to safety, Naruto said as he trudged through the storm, threatening to break Konoha apart. He shivered as a flash of lightning ran across the sky. The ground began to sizzle. A drop of acid rain just barely missed his face. Though his legs burned, and his body stung, Naruto started to run. He held Kurenai as securely as he could while he kicked up dust. By the time Naruto got back to his apartment, he was sweating profusely. He almost dropped Kurenai a couple of times, but he bore the pain in his body and pushed on. His efforts were rewarded, and he fell beneath the roof of his apartment complex. He observed his clothes. Some of them had been burned. Some of the protective covering he used for Kurenai was also eaten through. Thankfully, he did make it before he heard the familiar sound of heavy rainfall. The ground was covered in white smoke from the drops that fell from the sky. Alright, easy. We're almost there, Databeo, Naruto encouraged. He picked up the older woman and trudged up the stairs. He was worried when he heard the metal creak and shake. He'd definitely have to find another way to get up here if these ever gave way. This was getting unsafe. Naruto pushed himself and Kurenai past the open door, and in triumph, he chuckled as he made it inside. WWL, Kurenai-san, welcome to the abode of Uzumaki Naruto, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki said. He heard the Jonin violently cough behind him. He quickly took her to his room and placed her on his bed. As much as he wanted to relax, he knew he couldn't. Instead, Naruto took a deep breath and exhaled. He stared at Kurenai's body and swallowed the lump in his throat. Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. Please. He prayed, pleaded, begged to whatever gods there were still watching over this dying world. Please don't let him suffer for what he was about to do. He actually thanked Kami that Sakura wasn't with him, or any other woman for that matter. Forget the apocalypse going on outside, he would have died in the safety of his own home. With resolve and determination in his heart, Naruto nodded. First, he took off Kurenai's shoes. He dropped them to the floor. He then leaned her up and got the Jonin out of her clothes. He didn't know what this material was since it looked like some type of white bandage, but it was easily enough to slip her out of it without disturbing her too much. The young man threw her shirt to the floor and then, breathing easier, worked her out of her red mesh armor blouse. Despite the numerous scars, stabs, and cuts seeping blood from her wounds, her fair skin excited him. She was very beautiful. She was much more beautiful than those models in those magazines he used for his sexy jutsu. When he took off her mesh armor, his eyes lingered on her female undergarments. He swallowed again. Her body was so much different from Sakura's. Sakura was a girl, but this was a woman. A true woman laid on his bed. KUSO! Focus, Naruto. Her life is depending on you, he said. He held Kurenai up and unclasped her bra. His reasoning was that he might as well look all of her over for injuries. If she ever found out, then he'd make sure to prostrate himself and utter every apology he could think of. Naturally, knowing his luck, she would find out eventually. Naruto tried very hard not to stare at Kurenai's exposed body. As one might expect of an experienced kunoichi, she was very fit. She was also very beautiful. Her body was very lean and toned. That way her breasts jiggled captivated his eyes. He felt drawn to her tips. A rough cough broke Naruto's trance. He cursed himself, and then proceeded with the rest. He pulled down Kurenai's pants, which left only her lower pleats concealed by her underwear. And maybe I'll leave those on. I've given her enough reason to kill me. Can't pile on top of that, Databeo, he thought. Naruto then quickly made some cold water with some of the bathing jugs he sorted. It took a while, but he finally returned and dunked a rag in the water. He then pressed the rag on Kurenai's forehead. She coughed again. A trail of blood slipped out of her mouth. Next, Naruto cleaned her wounds. He couldn't believe how fast she was losing blood. He had gone through about 2 or 3 rags while he wiped her body down. Please don't criticize him too much if his hands roamed over certain places for too long. Just allow him the excuse of thoroughness. Once Kurenai's wounds were cleaned, Naruto grabbed some alcohol and poured it on the rag. He shivered as he heard the violent winds and crashing rain outside. With no electricity, he had to settle for doing this medical work with the help of a candle. It didn't provide much light, but there wasn't much he could do about it. So I cleaned her wounds. Now medicine? Naruto thought. Naruto grabbed all the medicine that he had and placed it in front of him. Now came the hard part. He knew fuck all about medicine. He had rarely gotten sick himself. He never knew why. That said, he did read some of the prescriptions. Ugh, why did there have to be so many different types of medicine? Why did they all have to have so many words? She's been coughing and she has a fever. I guess one of these might be good. This is non-drowsy, the other's drowsy. This works for 12 hours. This one for 24 hours. There's one for day. There's one for night? Cherry-flavored medicine? Naruto puzzled over what he had before he took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. Okay, I probably shouldn't give her a pill. She could choke. So liquid it is, he said as he held up one of the medicines. Good for 24 hours. Good for high fever and sickness. Helps strengthen chakra veins. Take with full stomach. Oh, Naruto stared at the bottle. He stared at Kurenai's lips. He stared back at the bottle. 1,000 ways to die, Uzumaki Naruto. Pick one. Naruto walked into his kitchen and grabbed 2 slices of bread. He chewed on them both thoroughly. He tried to excuse all the reasons that this was not a good idea, but he couldn't come up with one in time before he stood by Kurenai on his bed. Please don't kill me for this, he said as he stood over Kurenai and placed his mouth over her. He pushed the food into her mouth and helped her slowly swallow it. Well, at least this time he was kissing a girl and not Sasuke. To be honest, he couldn't even say he enjoyed this one. The taste of blood was on the Jonin's mouth. Granted, it wasn't her fault, but it was an observation. Once that was done, Naruto slowly pulled back. Kurenai muttered something, but Naruto couldn't tell what. He waited for about 5 minutes to 10 minutes, then administered the medicine. He had no idea why it looked red, but he wasn't a doctor. He didn't decide what color medicine got to be. Kurenai drank all her medicine and her violent coughing slowly eased. Naruto then quickly got her dressed in some female pajamas that he looted from one of the other homes. Kurenai wouldn't be winning any fashion contests, but at least she was covered. He really wished he could get her an ice pack, but what good was that if it melted immediately? Naruto picked up Kurenai's old clothes. He folded them neatly and placed them in a chair. He left the bedroom to allow teammate Sensei her rest. He made his way into the living room. The storm had made his apartment dark once again. He lit a match and candle for light. When he placed it on his table, he had a brief lunch of canned soup and tasty crackers. He looked at the medicine bottle and his mouth thinned. Every 4 hours. Great, he thought solemnly as he ate his food. He placed the medicine in his pocket. His clothes reeked. He'd have to wash them somehow. Naruto gasped as a boom of thunder rolled across the sky with such force that it shook the walls of his apartment. The rainfall outside turned into a damn downpour. Naruto watched outside as the ground hissed and sizzled. He actually wondered, would the ground beneath his apartment collapse? The thought made Naruto shiver. He would have to find some other place to live. Did he even have some other place to live? What if Kurenai didn't get better? He couldn't abandon her now that he had found her, but where else would he go? A sigh, the blonde took out his map. He marked the restaurant where he found Kurenai as food. Now, he needed to look through the rest of the village. That also made him wonder. What would happen if Konoha ran out of living spaces? Would he have to leave the village? Where would he go? Naruto placed his head in his hands and sighed. What am I supposed to do? The young genin questioned. He felt really out of his league at the moment. As Naruto picked up his dishes and used some dishwater to clean them, his eyes noticed something on his floor. It was an old journal with a pen attached to it. He picked it up and dusted it off. He probably looted this from one of the convenience stores across the street. The young man stared at the journal for a time, and before long he found himself at his table. He listened to the harsh weather outside his apartment. His eyes were tired and heavy. His body was so sore. He picked up the pen and opened the empty journal. Naruto's Log Day 1. Naruto's Log Day 4. 3 days have passed since I started making this journal. Hinata-sensei is still asleep. She mumbles from time to time. I've had to wipe sweat off her forehead. She mumbles about Shino, Kiba, and Hinata, but mostly Hinata. I don't know what she's talking about, but I'm glad to see she's fine. I've left on a few looting adventures, but I don't go for long. I'd rather not leave Kurenai-san by herself while she's resting. I've brought back some more food, but most of the meat and vegetables in freezers or refrigerators is filled with maggots and flies. I guess bugs can survive this type of thing just fine. Since finding Kurenai 3 days ago, I haven't found anyone else. The rain slowly eats away at my rooftop. Other buildings have crashed down. Wood and stone drift off to nowhere. I don't know how much longer this apartment will hold. I hope Kurenai-san gets better soon. Naruto closed his journal and put down his pen. He expelled a tired breath. He leaned back into his chair. The wind wasn't blowing too bad this time. Dark clouds and arid air still ruled the skies, but at least he could see a bit better. It hadn't been such a bad expedition. He gathered what he could. He brought back cases of water bottles, more canned goods, and boxes filled with supplies that hadn't been ravaged by the oncoming storms. The blonde looked at his clock. It was time for Kurenai's medicine. So, with that being said, Naruto pushed his seat away from his table and walked back to the bedroom. He had just fed the older Jonin via the lips earlier, so he doubted he had to do it again. He wouldn't say he got used to kissing her, but there wasn't so much hesitation as last time. Naruto slowly opened his door, and he noticed the woman still resting. Before he gave her the medicine, he decided to change the cold towel on her forehead. He touched her and smiled. "At least you don't have a fever anymore," he said. He placed another wet rag on her before he gave her the medicine. He held her head to make sure she didn't choke on it. Her hair was very soft. Once she drank all of it, he eased her back into the pillow. After that, he cleaned her body with lukewarm water and soap. Yup, her body still embarrassed the hell out of him, but he tried to get over it. Those tasks done, the Kyubi Jinchuriki pulled the covers up to Kurenai's neck and let her rest. He then moved to his futon on the floor. He set it up to give Kurenai more space on the bed. The eerie howls outside lulled him to sleep. The next morning, Naruto smiled. Some color had finally returned to Kurenai's pale face. He fed her breakfast and then gave her medicine again. Once she was resting peacefully, he closed the door to his bedroom. The Kyubi Jinchuriki walked into the bathroom and poured water down his body. He grabbed some soap and cleaned himself. Another splash of water, and he was ready for breakfast. This time, Naruto changed it up. He had finally done it. He finally got all the instant ramen packets and cup noodles from a convenience store that hadn't been taken. Of course, this wasn't exactly breakfast, but come on. Have a heart. It took the young man some time to heat up the water and the damn 5 minutes for it to fill about 3 cups of ramen. However, once it was done, he was in heaven if only for an instant. Still, the blonde couldn't relax yet. He pulled out his map and studied it while he ate. Numerous places had been crossed out or labeled. He tried to do a lot of searching now that he had a better grasp of the situation at hand. Let's see. I should probably search for someplace else to live in case this building collapses. Kurenai's the only one I've found for 4 days. I've only got 4 hours to be out before I have to give Hinata-sensei her next dose, he thought. Naruto tapped his finger on the table. There were so many other places to explore, but he'd rather stay close to Kurenai in case of danger. Slowly, Naruto turned his gaze to the one place he had been avoiding for some time. He closed his eyes and steeled himself. He avoided this place in particular because he had no doubts that he wouldn't like what he saw. Still, now wasn't the time for him to be scared. This world was different. Gone was the world which he knew. If he couldn't do this, then what was the point in him even saving Hinata-sensei? Naruto grabbed his gear. He placed his goggles over his eyes and grabbed one of the coats he stole from some fashion shop. He then wrote Kurenai a letter. On the off chance that she woke up and he wasn't home, then at least she wouldn't be confused. Hell, he hoped that he could return home and toss the letter in the trash. Either way, Naruto lifted up the door to his apartment and slid out beneath it. He then jumped on the railing and dashed off. The Kyubi Jinchuriki decided to hop along the rooftops this time. Getting to his destination would take much longer if he was going by simple walking. Besides, he didn't feel the need to get distracted with unnecessary looting. He had enough to tide them over for now. Hell, he was already using one of the other apartment rooms for storing other things. That said, he didn't want to take too much. If he did move to a new location, he couldn't carry all of this stuff. Without the use of storage scrolls, he was pretty much stuck with what he could carry. Thankfully, the wind wasn't hard today. In fact, it seemed to be a nice day. Well, nice for hell on earth, but you get the idea. There was still no sun given the thick clouds in the sky, but at least there were no thunderstorms or rainfalls. From above the rooftops, Naruto took in his surroundings. His home looked nothing like the amazing spectacle of a village that it used to be. Instead, it looked like the god of death had moved its hand through the entire nation. Destruction laid everywhere. Children's parks had been destroyed. Buildings and rubble laid everywhere. Then, there were the corpses. Naruto grimaced when he saw melted skin and crushed bones turned to dust. He heard distant sounds of a cane that rolled down the dusty road. As Naruto got closer and closer to his destination, he suddenly stopped. He stared forward in silent shock. He had never been this out before, and because of the dust and wind, visibility was pretty low. Only now that the wind had settled could he see the Hokage's stone faces, or lack thereof. The Shodane, Nidame, Sandame, and Yandame Hokage faces were no longer on the mountain. No, they crushed the Hokage mansion and everything inside it. That must have been that thunderous earthquake Naruto felt a few days ago. The harsh weather became too much for the monuments, and they fell beneath their own weight. The Hokage mansion, once the very symbol of Konoha's prosperity, lay broken down beneath the stone faces. Naruto stared at the Yandame Hokage head. There were many times he sat on top of that spot. It helped him think. It helped him escape the village many times. Now it was gone. Its face was cracked and bruised. One more rainfall and it would become a distant memory. Unable to help himself, Naruto dashed for the Hokage mansion. He didn't know what he expected to find, but his legs carried him there anyway. When Naruto arrived at the scene, his heart dropped. The stairs which led up the mountain to the faces became rusted. It had fallen over with sand and dust seeking to devour it. His eyes burned in the memory of the dried blood of hundreds, perhaps even thousands of civilians and shinobi. It was then that he remembered, in case of emergency, the Hokage rock was used for safety from village threats. Naruto clenched his fists so hard that blood fell from his palms. Academy students were always some of the first to be ushered there. That most likely meant Konohamaru, Udan, Moegi, Iruka-sensei, they were all gone. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki turned away. He turned away from his desire to confirm the deaths. He turned away from the massacre he knew he would unearth if he dug. He turned away from the gruesome fate that had befallen all of the civilians who hid there. He just knew that if he looked, he wouldn't know what to do with himself. Naruto dashed off. With time, the blonde finally saw his destination appear in front of him. He could tell he was getting closer because the amount of bodies was getting larger. Corpses littered the streets. Some laid in alleyways, others were melted away from the acid rain. There were some clothing fragments, but those too burned away without much struggle. Naruto finally arrived at his destination. He always thought he'd be getting congratulated for winning the Chunin exams, not coming back to an eerie graveyard of corpses. Naruto left the rooftops and placed his feet on the sandy floor. Seriously, Naruto, boots. Get them. With a shake of his head, he walked the streets. Death laid anywhere his eyes were. Mountains of corpses riddled one side of the street. He figured this happened because the people were too anxious to get away. Some had their skulls caved in. That probably happened from the ensuing panic. People stepped on the poor souls to death. Merchant stores, food stalls, entertainment facilities, there was no living thing within them. The howls of the wind, the uneasy creaks of wood, the sight of melted stone, and the vision of hanging bodies from the rooftops to the floor made the last Uzumaki wonder if this trip was even a good idea anymore. As the stadium got bigger and bigger, Naruto thought he smelled something strange. It was only when he actually made it to one of the entrances did he cover his nose. Ugh, what's that smell? He wondered. He grabbed his mask and held it over his nose. He then entered the dark passages of the Chunin exam stadium. Naruto felt a little worried. The few steps he took inside the dark corridors of the Chunin exam stadium left him unnerved. His steps echoed like 1,000 pin drops. All around him was death, grim and unceasing. Blood splattered the walls, crushed limbs and innards portrayed some macabre art that left him queasy. Food vendors and broken glass mixed with some of the bodies. Naruto walked up the stairs. He shivered when he saw more corpses laying on the staircase. The smell got stronger. The distant creaks of metal braces and pipeline works caused a shiver. The howl of the wind outside seemed so far away. Nevertheless, Naruto kept walking. Yet, as he walked, the blonde couldn't help but feel like he was being followed. The young Uzumaki remembered a lesson from his sensei. Always trust your instincts. Your instincts will save you faster than your mind ever will. Shinobi don't randomly get paranoid. If something felt wrong, then more often than not it was. Naruto stopped walking. He looked behind himself. Nothing changed. There was only darkness, bodies, blood, and silent chaos. His blue eyes darted left. They darted right. He saw nothing out of the ordinary. So, he kept walking. However, he didn't get very far. Naruto turned his head to the left wall, and he wished he hadn't. Now, yes, at this very moment, he understood that his world was gone. Naruto stared at the familiar green jumpsuit and the bowl cut of one boy. The other, he recognized by the decaying red markings on his face. In his arms were the broken bones of a small animal. Both corpses laid motionless against the wall. Kiba, bushy brows, Naruto thought to himself. He remembered seeing Kiba and some of his other friends when he tried to warn them about Gaara. So they didn't get away. The blonde knelt down and sighed. Kiba, he was one of Kurenai's genin. What was he going to tell her when she woke up? Naruto didn't remember if he cried or not. He just continued to stare at the scene in front of him with disbelieving eyes. Even when everything was going to shit, he still thought at least some of his friends might have gotten away. Once again he realized just how stupid and naive he was. Naruto knelt and offered his two friends a silent prayer. If even they didn't make it, what other hope was he holding on to? After that, Naruto continued walking. His path led him to a row of the crowd benches. As one might expect, more bodies laid over the seats. Each one was more disturbing than the last. Yet, the thing which disturbed Naruto the most was the giant fissure in the fighting area. The place where he fought Neji had a massive opening split right down the middle. One might think it a land beast with a mouth if they saw it from the right angle. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki walked back inside. As he did, he heard the distant sound of rumbling thunder. Well, that wasn't good. Naruto definitely didn't want to hunker down in the Chunin exam stadium. Ever since he got here, the place gave him the creeps. That feeling of being watched never stopped. Still, Naruto did come here for a reason. In the many years of his life, Naruto had been to the stadium many times. Not many people knew this, but the stadium actually had a network of tunnels that led to most of the major parts of the village. If he could get the power restored to one of the lower areas, then that might be a good place to live instead of his house. At last the fear of buildings coming down on him and Kurenai would be taken care of. That said, Naruto knew shit about generators, electricity, and power. Plus, there was still that ominous feeling. More time passed. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki discovered another staircase. He cautiously took it down. The further down he went, the darker it got. The darker it got, the stronger the stench. The stronger the stench, the more danger he felt he was in. Floor after floor, he finally had to take out a flashlight. Alright, I think I know where I am. This is one of the maintenance areas for the stadium, he thought. The blonde walked. His footsteps echoed even louder than before. He opened some doors that he found, but he saw nothing of significance inside. Still, he supposed he could use these for storage if he cleaned them up a bit. He could add some torches to the walls for light, and it was pretty easy to come and go. Naruto continued to walk. He turned down a separate hallway. He stiffened when he heard something fall in the distance. It sounded like something metal. Not taking any chances, Naruto grabbed his kunai. He then turned off his flashlight. Though he didn't want to be stumbling around in the dark, if it was an enemy that he didn't want them to know where he was. The young genin quickly hid behind a couple of stray boxes. He held his cloth mask over face. Whatever was down here, it was the worst thing Naruto had ever smelled in his life. The blonde sat in the darkness for a little while. So far, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. He moved on, but he did it a bit quieter this time. He rounded another corridor. He chuckled some doors, but he didn't notice anything too suspicious. It was only when Naruto smelled blood did he stop. The young man turned to a door. The stench came from there. He grabbed the doorknob and turned it open. It was too dark to see inside, so Naruto turned on his flashlight. When he did, he saw a trail of blood flowing from the door to a deep corner of the room. He held up the flashlight and his eyes widened. The flashlight fell from his hands. "Ha, what are you doing out there in the rain? You're gonna catch cold, kid. Here, come have a nice, hot bowl of ramen. It's on me." Naruto didn't hear the thud of the flashlight. Its light shined dimly, gravely, mockingly. "Hey Naruto, my best customer. Haven't seen ya in a while. How's it going? Any cool mission stories for me today?" "Aya. Me. Aya. Me. Yeah. Me," a voice croaked out. Naruto fell to his knees and wretched over the ground. His breath felt short. His world felt like it was fading. He barely held himself together from going mad. He grabbed his forehead. Against the floor, he thudded his head so hard he felt dizzy. What kind of world was this? What hell did the genin wake up in? What the fuck was wrong with him? Why was everyone? Naruto held up his head. Was he crying? He didn't even know. He felt like he was going to pass out. Tsuchiya-jiken, Naruto shuddered in thought as he stared at the wall. Stuck to the wall from some kind of sick, demented yellow puss tissue lay Tsuchi, the owner of Ichiraku Ramen. Naruto could see the older man's ramen clothes. His face looked bloated with splotches and quivering pores. Rats sniffled at his legs and some of his skin had peeled off. Other parts looked like they had been eaten. Then there was his stomach. Naruto knew Tsuchi most of his life. The man never had a gut that big. Even worse than that, it moved left and right every now and then. Yeah. Me, Tsuchi groaned as his neck spasmed. The one eye that Naruto saw rolled back into Tsuchi's head. His fingers twitched. As Naruto knelt there, he raised his fist into the air. He then slammed it into the floor. So great was his strength that he left a powerful dent where he punched. Naruto reached into his backpack. He pulled out an explosive tag. Naruto then slapped his cheeks so hard that they stung. He stared forward. Tsuchiyajiken, I swear to you. If I find Ayame-chan, I will protect her. Uzumaki Naruto stakes his damn life on it, Dadabayo. I'm sorry I didn't get to you in time. I'll protect Ayame-chan. I'll survive. She'll survive. I promise. Naruto claimed proudly. He stared at the horrific blob that was his friend. He then bit his thumb enough to draw blood. With that blood, he smeared his knuckles and shot them in Tsuchi's direction. Uzumaki Naruto never goes back on his word, he claimed. He then tied the explosive tag to the kunai. Naruto picked up his backpack and flashlight. He headed for the door. Aya. Me. Tsuchi moaned. Naruto turned back to throw the kunai and felt his body grow cold for a moment. Thanks to his flashlight, he could see Tsuchi's full body. More importantly, he could see the tipped finger of Tsuchi's right hand. His forefinger pointed to the right. It only held for a moment before his body started to spasm violently once again. The blonde firmly nodded. Hi. I got it, Tsuchiyajiken. I won't fail you, Dadabayo, he exclaimed. He then grabbed a match and lit it with fire. His eyes shined beneath the hot stick. He placed the fire under the tag. The tag ignited. I won't leave you to suffer, Aji-chan. I'm sorry, Naruto said as he threw the kunai into the wall. Once the kunai stuck, the blonde turned around and walked out of the door. Nah. Are you? Too, Tsuchi groaned as the door closed. The young Uzumaki ran as fast as he could as a thunderous explosion blasted the door from its hinges. Fire roared from the room the genin was in while he wiped the tears from his eyes. He kept running to the right. He knew not what laid ahead for him, but he could no longer hesitate. He couldn't afford to lose his nerve now. He couldn't afford to show weakness. It was time for Uzumaki Naruto to wake the hell up. Once he was far enough away, Naruto slowed his steps. He inhaled and exhaled slowly. The genin turned his flashlight to one of the walls. He noticed a map for the general layout of the building. Though he had already given up on the idea of turning this place into a new base, it still had suitable things if he desired to come back. Okay, as soon as I find Ayame-chan, then I'll head back, Naruto thought to himself. However, even as Naruto had that thought, he wondered. What turned Tsuchi into that thing on the wall? The genin's travels through the dark brought him to the very end of a corridor. He still hadn't found the maintenance area for the lights, but at this point he didn't care. He just wanted to get out of here with Ayame if she was even still alive. Naruto shook his head. He dared not think that. Even seeing Tsuchi like that was almost too much for him. If Ayame was no better, what could he do? About 5 to 10 minutes later, the Kyubi Jinchuriki noticed a small light beneath one of the doors. Cautiously, he stepped towards it. Unlike the other rooms, there was a large pile of boxes, chairs, and even tables blocking the door. He made sure his footsteps were quiet. If Ayame was behind the door, then he'd rather not spook her. Still, what made them put up this barrier? Naruto got over the obstacles easily enough. He then stood in front of the door. I knocked on it slowly. Ayame-chan? He whispered. The young man didn't know why he was being so quiet, but something told him to speak softly. He got no answer. Naruto grabbed the door handle and twisted it. He frowned. Locked, he said. The Kyubi Jinchuriki took the kunai in his hand and jabbed it into the door. It took some doing, but he managed to pry open the door. It opened with a rather eerie creak. He passed through it, and the door closed behind him. Naruto noticed he was in some kind of boiler room. Tons of machinery and pipes laid in the room. Iron pierced the walls and ceiling. The light he had seen was from a series of light bulbs in a lamp overhead. Its harsh glow stung his eyes. It was no surprise why. He had been walking in the dark for over an hour before now. As Naruto took a step into the center of the room, his instincts flared. He ducked his head. He heard the crash of something metal against the iron railing on his left. He then heard a gasp. He swung his kunai and a clash of iron and steel rang through the boiler room. Naruto turned his head and he noticed his kunai clashed with an iron pipe. However, he widened his eyes when he saw Ayam standing over him. Her gentle face contorted with pure rage and hatred. Never did the Kyuubi Jinchuriki think the young girl he thought his friend would ever wear such an expression. "I am Michin, wait! It's me, Naruto," Naruto spoke quickly. Given the light in the room, the blonde saw the young woman's hands shake. "You even took Naruto-kun. He was a nice boy. He was Dai," Ayam said as she swung again. Naruto ducked beneath the strike and backed away. "Wait, I am Michin. It's really me. I swear, Databeo. Your dad told me to come get you. I'm here to get you out of here," the blonde explained. Now that the Kyuubi Jinchuriki had the time to properly look at the ramen waitress, she was not okay. While she wasn't on the level of bad that Kurenai had, she still had seen better days. Her hair was unkempt and wild. Bags appeared under her eyes and her skin looked pale. Parts of her clothes had either been torn or worn out. Her steps were unsteady. "Don't talk to me. My father's been gone for over 2 weeks. It was you. The others didn't believe me, but I knew. I told them not to go. Why you took them? TTTT the darkness took them. It follows. It follows you. It does," she screamed. Naruto held up his hands slowly. Yet, her hysteria unsettled him greatly. What did she mean the darkness took them? What did she mean by it follows you? "I am Michin, please. I promise, it's me Databeo. You've served me ramen ever since I was 5. You and Tsuchiya-kun always gave me free ramen on my birthday. You guys." "Shut up," Ayam roared as she swung the iron pipe. Naruto jumped out of the way as the pipe crashed into the stone wall. The blonde recoiled in shock. Damn, for a civilian Ayam really had some power. She cracked the wall with that iron pipe. If that hit Naruto, then he'd forget about healing in a week. He'd need a whole month. "Naruto-kun's gone. Everyone's gone. I am the only one left. I haven't slept or eaten for days. I know if I do, it will come for me. Just like it came for you, for my father, for everyone else. I won't let it happen to me too. I'll avenge my father," Ayam said as she stumbled over her steps. Naruto jumped back as Ayam swung the pipe again. She screamed at him as she swung, but the blonde made no attempts to hurt the girl. He let her swing her heart out as she bashed into the boilers, the pipes, and the walls. Something must have broken because steam started to fill the room. He watched more and more sweat pour down Ayam's face. She tripped and fell down. Her breasts became ragged as she swung. Naruto stared at Ayam's fallen form. "I am Michin," the genin thought. The brown-haired girl dragged the pipe over the floor. It made loud clanging sounds as she neared Naruto. "I told Dad not to go. Why didn't they all listen to me? I heard that explosion. He didn't make it, did he? Now everyone's gone. I am all that's left. You took them all. Before I die, I'll at least take you with me," Ayam roared. She held the pipe over her head. Naruto didn't move. She wondered why he didn't move to defend himself, but she didn't care. If the darkness gave her a free shot, then she was going to take it. With all her strength, she swung down. Ayam widened her eyes as Naruto caught the pipe with his hand. He then pulled it and her. He held her as tight as he could. "Let go of me. I'll kill you. You took everything from me. What's happened to the world? Why did this happen?" Ayam wailed and cried as her head fell into Naruto's shoulders. The 2 Konoha citizens fell to the ground as the ramen waitress cried on the young man's shoulder. Naruto caressed her hair while her fists pounded his chest. "I'm sorry, I am Michin. I was too late, Databeo. I was too late to save you or Tsuchiya. I'm sorry I couldn't help you. I'm here now though, Databeo. I'll keep you safe now. I'll make sure you aren't alone anymore. We'll survive, I am Michin," Naruto vowed. Ayam sobbed into his arms while he caressed her hair. Suddenly, Naruto heard some light snoring. He looked down. Ayam had fallen asleep. Was he really going to have to carry someone else again? The Kyuubi Jinchuriki sighed and smiled. Ayam's breath tickled his neck, which made him shiver. He touched her forehead. She feels a little warm. I hope she's not sick too, but I've got to get her out of here, he thought. Naruto picked up Ayam and secured her to his body. He then made his way towards the door. The steam was getting too heavy. However, as soon as he touched the door, a burst of fear rushed through the young man's body. His hand shivered in the door handle. Something laid beyond the door. It was then that Naruto remembered Ayam's words. TTTT the darkness took them. It follows. It follows you. The last Uzumaki wondered if his nerves were getting to him. Perhaps Iam's story creeped him out a bit. What was out there? Naruto walked for a long time and he didn't see anything. Nothing attacked him. He grabbed the door handle again. Suddenly, Naruto gasped. He jumped back. Dread rolled up his body. He then remembered. No, nothing attacked him, but something attacked Iam's dad. How did he get stuck to the wall like that? What turned him into that? Unfortunately, the blonde would have to make his move soon. He had to get Iam out of here. Plus, the steam from the busted pipe continued to fill up the room with steam. He was all for a sauna, but not if it would leave him a dried-up prune. Naruto picked up his kunai. He then placed another in his mouth. Fuck it. He would run, and anything that wasn't him or Iam, he would either take it down, run past it, or die in the attempt. Either way, he wasn't going down without a fight. The young genin swung open the door. It was dark. There was nothing in that void that he could see. Had it always been that dark? He wasn't sure. I'll protect you, I am Nichin, Naruto thought. The blonde dashed into the darkness. As soon as he made it over the barrier blocking the door, he ran as fast as he could. The dark felt heavy. It felt like it was trying to coil around him like a serpent. The echoes of his feet roamed through the corridors. He hoped his ears were playing with him because he thought he heard something screech in the distance. Naruto ran so fast he was surprised he didn't hit anything on the way out. Yet, no matter how fast he ran, he had a feeling. He was being followed. Something had its eye on him. In his arms, Naruto carried the unconscious Ichiraku ramen server. He ran so fast he thought his heart might give out. Sweat poured down his body. The darkness was getting heavier. He had long passed the fire that he used to free Tucci from his torment. Truth be told, he only had a vague idea of where he was going. He ran so fast his legs were getting sore. Luckily for him, his efforts were rewarded. Naruto saw the stairs he used to get down to the lower levels. Yosh! We made it, I am Nichin, Naruto thought. As soon as his foot touched the bottom step, Naruto shivered as he felt something long grab his leg. It was wet, spongy, and strong. He turned around. The blonde gasped when he saw what looked like a tendril of wet skin wrapped around his leg. What the young genin though before the tendril started to pull him back into the corridor. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki heard something groan and skitter in the encroaching darkness. Whatever it was strong. It was stronger than anything he had faced before. It felt like the damn thing was trying to rip his leg from the rest of his body. Naruto growled. He thought quickly. He took out another explosive tag and scrapped the ground with his kunai. The sparks fell into the tag and lit it with flames. You took Tsuchiyajizen. You don't get I am Nichin too, Naruto swore. The blonde threw the tag into the darkness. A loud explosion rocked the chambers and he heard a blood-curdling scream of pain as the tentacle unwrapped itself from his leg. As fast as he could, Naruto limped up the stairs. He left the darkness behind him. He heard gurgling. The tendrils slipped back into the darkness. Yup, definitely not making this place a base. A slithering growl and hiss was heard in the darkness. The noise got smaller and smaller before there was only silence. Naruto inhaled and exhaled. He was tired. He was dead tired. He looked at his leg and he noticed a piece of his pants was torn. He also noticed he was bleeding. The genin shook his head. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki limped up the stairs and came back to the Chunin exam stadium stands. It took some time, but he left the area and entered the streets. He pulled a cover over Iam's face to make sure she wouldn't inhale the dust and dirt. The thunder and lightning sounded so far away in his ears while he journeyed. Naruto noticed his vision was getting hazy. His breath became short. 1,000 bright lights flared in his eyes. He could hear the beat of his chest. Naruto took a step forward and his leg gave out. He crashed into the side of a wall and panted. Keikuso! Can't breathe. He thought to himself. Everything was swirling and spiraling in front of him. He couldn't keep himself awake. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki fell forward and his face hit the dust. Humph, stupid brat. Fine. Consider this a debt that will be repaid. Despite the strange voice, Naruto passed out. When Naruto opened his eyes, he noticed he was back in his apartment. He inhaled. He turned his head to the window. It was dark outside. He fell asleep on his table. Huh! How did I get here? I don't remember making it home, the young man thought. When he leaned up, Naruto found he had fallen asleep at his table. A medicine vial laid in front of him. He picked it up and looked it over. Suddenly he jumped up. Shit! I didn't give Kurenai her medicine. Where is Iam-chan? he asked himself. Dizzily, he fumbled through his house. Naruto opened his bedroom door and stepped inside. Kurenai laid on his bed. She slept peacefully. Ayam laid on a futon on the floor. She also slept peacefully. Naruto leaned against the door and slid to his floor. How long had he been asleep? The blonde's blue eyes traveled to his wounded leg. It was already healed. Dried blood stained some torn parts, but it was nothing he couldn't wipe off. Though he had questions, Naruto was thankful that he made it back home. The sound of the storm outside made him shiver. The unsettling howls of wind over the dying land rolled through his ears. The rising questions aside, Naruto stood to his feet. He touched Kurenai's forehead. I guess she's doing better. I don't know if I gave her medicine or not. I'll just give her half a cup then, he thought. Naruto poured a half cup of medicine. He then held up Kurenai's head and let her drink. Once she was full, he set her back down. He was thankful for her rhythmic sleeping breaths. It made him smile for whatever reason. He turned his head and looked down. Now that left Ayam. He touched her forehead and cheeks. He didn't feel anything wrong. She was just sleeping peacefully. Naruto brushed a piece of hair from her face. Ayam's dad was gone. Kiba was gone. Lee was gone. Was everyone else gone? Despite his sleep, Naruto didn't feel very refreshed. He still felt tired. So, he pulled up Ayam's covers and walked out of the room. He grabbed a small rag and dipped it in cold water. He wiped some of the sweat off Ayam's forehead and he cleaned Kurenai. Yes, it was still embarrassing, but after a week of doing it, he was dealing with it. Once the two ladies were taken care of, Naruto closed the door to his room. He gave himself a bath with some of the jugged water in the category for bathing. He was beginning to run low on that. He'd have to make another trip for more water at some point. With his bath done, Naruto feasted on some jerky snacks, chips, and canned soup. The blonde even surprised himself when he decided to add some fruit to his dinner. He ate some apples and bananas that he found still fresh. With his stomach full, Naruto washed the dishes that piled up in his sink. He already knew if Kurenai and Ayam woke up, they would criticize him for the mess. Shikamaru would have called it troublesome. Once the dishes were done, Naruto lit a candle and stared at his map. He traced the path he took from his home to the stadium. He marked the stadium with a large danger symbol. He then crossed it out. Naruto clenched his hand into a fist. He closed his eyes when he heard the sound of another crash. Some house, store, or building in the distance fell down beneath its own weight. The winds picked up. Okay, I need more water. There's still some at the market. I can go get that. Then I'll need more shinobi tools. That should be in the shinobi district that sells kunai and other things. I could also get some mesh armor and other things, but that's further than the Chunin exam stadium. I guess I'll take inventory tomorrow morning, Naruto thought to himself. For the next 30 minutes, Naruto worked out his plans for the next day. Once that was done, the young man grabbed his journal and wrote in it. Naruto's log, day 5 I guess. Kurenai still hasn't woken up. The medicine I've been giving her is getting smaller and smaller. I might need to get her something else if she doesn't wake up. I went to the Chunin exam stadium in the hopes of getting a new place to stay from the weather outside. I didn't find a base. I found a graveyard. Kiba and Bushy Brow are gone like the others. I saw Tsuchiyajizen. He was wrapped in some type of flesh sack. He wasn't the nice old man who always gave me ramen. His body twitched, and I saw hundreds, if not thousands, of slithering things beneath his skin. I freed him from his torment. Thanks to him, I also found Ayam Michin. I don't know what I'll tell her if she asks me about her dad. It doesn't matter to me though. I'll protect her. I swore to Tsuchiyaji that I would. I saved her from the lower levels, but I was attacked by something down there. It laid in the darkness. I think it was hunting me ever since I stepped down there. Don't go to the stadium. Something crazy lurks down there. I barely made it out with Ayam Michin. I passed out shortly after, but I somehow made it hope. I guess Kami hasn't forsaken me yet. I'll be getting supplies tomorrow. Naruto yawned as he scribbled on his journal. The flames of the candle illuminated his blonde hair. A blast of lightning and a crash of thunder shook his house. He steadied his breathing. The hours rolled by. The Kyubi Jinchuriki closed his journal and placed it somewhere safe. He then exhausted himself with doing some basic exercises. End of the world or not, he had to be strong to face it. The exercises tired him out and Naruto set up a chair with a pillow and covers. He fell asleep from the sounds of coming rain. Next morning, Naruto stretched himself awake. His body felt rather stiff from the chair he slept in. The first thing he did was grab the medicine on his table and head into the bedroom. He slowly opened the door. Ayam had turned over in the futon, and Kurenai remained the same. He checked Kurenai again. The blonde smiled. No fever. He walked out of the room and into the bathroom. With a wet towel, he washed Kurenai's body again. Honestly, she sweated quite a bit for having done no strenuous activity. Perhaps he should have been thankful that Ayam wasn't awake to see this as well. Once that was done, Naruto grabbed some food and munched on it. He kissed Kurenai and fed her breakfast. While he let her stomach digest her food, he turned to Ayam. He contemplated giving her a bath as well. She kinda smelled bad, but that wasn't really her fault. A sigh, Naruto decided to do Ayam as well. Now, Naruto didn't know shit about sickness, but Kurenai was starting to get better. If Ayam, who came from some dirty place, wasn't clean, then wouldn't that affect Kurenai, who was still recovering? He thought so anyway. The young genin pulled the covers off Ayam and took off her clothes. Perhaps he should have been more flustered, but he didn't have the time. Plus, it wasn't so bad now. Oh sure, he was still scared to death if they woke up, but what could he do? Damned if he did, damned if he didn't. Naruto took off Ayam's clothes. He gulped. The ramen waitress body wasn't exactly on par with the Jonin's, but she was a true beauty nonetheless. He always thought Ayam was beautiful and cute, but she was way older than him. Plus, he had an interest in Sakura at the time. Well, he still did, but in the face of these two beautiful women, Naruto couldn't deny that Sakura didn't measure up. Still, Ayam Nichan's got some daring underwear, Naruto thought as he gulped again. She was still growing, but her body began to fill out like a proper woman. Dare Naruto say he was happy for the end of the world. If Ayam grew up normally, he'd have to beat all the lechers off with a damn stick to protect the brunette. Her beautiful skin and her flat stomach were a wonder to behold. Her breasts, and were quite the wonder to look at, and Naruto had to take his mind off of them multiple times. Okay, maybe he wasn't as used to it as he thought. He grabbed the towel and wiped Ayam down. Naturally, he left her lower garments on. He was crazy, not suicidal. He washed her hair and scrubbed her with soap. He was rather surprised that she didn't wake up, but he only attributed that to her tiredness. Ayam groaned, which made him pause. What did I do to deserve this? Naruto screamed to himself before he continued. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki finished washing the ramen waitress and dressed her in new clothes. He placed her clothes with Kurenai's old clothes. He then pulled her covers up to her neck. He then closed the door and left them to their rest. Once his two guests were taken care of, Naruto ate some more and took stock of the inventory he had. He needed more water. The food was still in relative goodness. He could probably pick up more medicine from the other stores in the commercial district. That is, if the buildings hadn't been crushed and destroyed. I guess today I'll go searching for food and water. Tomorrow, I'll do clothes and home stuff. I also need more shinobi tools, but that's a little far, Naruto thought to himself. He picked up some new clothes and his backpack. He then moved out of his home. Before he began his journey, Naruto inspected his house. The roof still looked stable and everything was standing strong. However, he did notice a few more creaks on the lower levels than had been there before. It was nothing to worry about now, but that didn't mean it wouldn't be a worry later. Naruto would have to keep his eyes peeled. So, the last Uzumaki went out again. He quickly noticed it was hotter than it was yesterday. In fact, it was so hot, he actually ran back inside and shed off the coat he was wearing. There was no heavy wind today and the breeze felt nice. He still kept the mask for the blowing sand and dust. The sky was still dark with dust clouds and the putrid color of green and dark yellow, but at least there was nothing else to deter him. He quickly opened his map and grinned. Right on target, he thought as he ran through the remnants of his ruined homeland. The young blonde entered one of the convenience stores that he hadn't looted and began taking all that he could. He opened his backpack and filled it with more convenient snacks such as bentos, bread boxes, chips, bottled water, warm soda, and juice jugs. He ran back to his home and dropped those off in over 5 trips. He also grinned when he found bandages, gauzes, cloth wraps, a few bottles of medicinal alcohol, and some healing ointments. He looted the convenience store for all it was worth. Don't ask him why he took the pots, pans, and other cooking materials. Maybe he could use them or shred them down for scrap. Either way, he thought they were worth something. Once convenience store 1 was looted, Naruto started moving to other places. He picked up some more clothes. Some for himself and others that he thought girls or women would wear. If Ayam and Kurenai had a problem, then they could get their own clothes later. After about 8 trips, Naruto took a break with some water and jerky. He had collected enough food crates, jugs of water, and supplies for the house to at least last another month or 2. Hell, If Ayam and Kurenai stayed asleep, then those provisions would last longer. That said, he was beginning to use other rooms for storage. One of the apartment rooms was for clothes. Another was for spare food. Still, he wished he had some help. If one of them awoke, then at least that would give him the confidence to go further out. With his break finished, Naruto began his trek through the commercial district of the village. He marked some places on his map for further exploration. He even looted the cash registers of money. Not like they would be needing it now. He also had a mind to go to the Konoha bank and get everything from there if it was still standing. No, Naruto didn't think it right to just rob people blind, but what else was he supposed to do? Hell, all the people who probably used the stuff were dead. Plus, if things continued like this, he, Kurenai, and Ayam might have to move from Konoha. He didn't know how the rest of the world acted, but he doubted something like money would ever become obsolete. Besides, even if it did, then it at least helped warm a fire. But the bank is guarded in the shinobi district. Rightfully so, I guess. What should I do now? Naruto thought to himself. After some time, Naruto decided to head back home. He didn't stay there for long. Instead, he grabbed some spare kunai, shuriken, and other shinobi tools before he headed back out. Naruto made sure to give Kurenai her medicine before he went back out. He'd have to find some more. Her vial was getting low. Luckily, he discovered a lot in his last outing. Anyway, Naruto found a secluded part of the village not too far from his home. For the next 3 hours, he trained his body. He threw kunai and shuriken and practiced the many techniques he had learned while he was in the academy. He trained hard. The images of Tuchi's body remained fresh in his mind. The corrupted air filled his lungs. Sweat poured down his face. Naruto wasn't sure how long he punched the side of a wall. He only saw the cracks he left in it. Tuchi, Kiba, Lee. How many others ended up like them? When he was done, Naruto took another breath. He was tired and he didn't feel like staying out anymore. However, he still had something he wished to try. It had been a few days since he had done this. The Kyubi Jinchuriki clenched his fists. He knew this was going to hurt, but he was pretty damn determined. He relaxed his mind. He inhaled and exhaled. The young genin then called forth his chakra. Aoyuwaf! Naruto screamed in pain as his body burned like it had been set on fire. Nevertheless, the young man had been expecting this. He slammed his hands together and forcefully pushed as hard as he could. Please, even a minuscule amount was enough. The pain would be worth it. Veins lined Naruto's arms, legs, and face. He felt like his body was being ripped into thousands of pieces. The veins glowed with an eerie, almost unnatural color that the Kyubi Jinchuriki couldn't see. He closed his eyes from the sheer amounts of agony rushing through his body. His breathing felt short. His throat burned. His lungs felt like they might explode. His heart was gonna burst. Yet he never stopped. He endured the pain. He endured the pressure. The gravel and dirt beneath his feet began to crack. Acid green energy poured out from his skin. Unlike normal chakra, this wasn't blue. This power. It hurt, but it felt like nothing he experienced before. His very body was feeding off the resonating new power in his chakra pathway system. The green chakra circled through his body. From the toes of his feet to the skull in his head, there was no place it didn't touch. It seeped into his bones, his muscles, his stomach, his heart, and any place it could reach. By the time it was done, Naruto wondered if he was going to die. Slowly, the Kyubi Jinchuriki stopped. He fell to his knees. His hands kept him from falling into the dirt. Blood dripped from the side of his mouth, and his entire body felt like crumbled dust. What was that? Naruto thought. While the blonde genin caught his breath, he slowly stood to his feet. Every inch of his body cried out in pain. He slowly limped back home. That's it. Change of plans. Tomorrow was a day off. Probably the next day after that as well, and a third day just to be on the safe side. By some miracle, Naruto made it back to his apartment. Perhaps he was in luck. The wind started to pick up. It wouldn't be long before another sandstorm reared its ugly head over the wasted lands. He stepped inside and quickly went into the bathroom. He stripped off his clothes and gave himself a bath. TCH, like you can call a lukewarm water jug, a rag, and some soap a bath, the blonde said to himself. Once he was clean, he limped over to the living room. He didn't remember when he hit the couch. All he knew was that he had fallen asleep. His dreams were pleasant. The subtle movements of his body were not, though. Every twitch was a great pain. After a few hours, Naruto was stirred awake by something brushing through his hair. He smelled something very nice, but he couldn't put his tired finger on it. He noticed how cold it was compared to before he fell asleep. It was severely cold. It was so cold he wondered if he needed extra blankets. The genin opened his eyes slowly. Despite being tired, his vision was perfectly clear. Though startled, he somehow managed to not let it show. He smiled. "Glad you're awake, I am Nichin," Naruto said tiredly as he stared at the now-awake ramen waitress who looked back at him in utter shock. Naruto turned on the lights to his living room while he motioned for Ayam to take a seat. The brunette silently nodded. Her face was red with embarrassment that her young friend found her at an embarrassing time. She didn't know what to say when he leaned up and moved himself from the couch. Also, did he get taller? Ayam didn't know why she thought it, but Naruto looked very well put together. He always wore that overbearing orange jumpsuit, so she never noticed too many physical changes. Yet, now that he was only in a white t-shirt and some boxers, she couldn't deny he looked handsome. Well, handsome in a little brother way. Yeah, let's go with that. "Are you hungry?" Naruto asked. Slowly, Ayam's face fell. Her mind took her back to her time beneath the Chunin exam stadium and the horrors with it. She remembered herself and 10 other people, including her father, that were stuck in the boiler room. It was easy at first. Wait for the invasion to be over and have someone locate them. That was the plan. However, the young ramen waitress was wholly unprepared for the hell that followed. Ayam remembered the sound of something like thunder. The room shook like a violent earthquake. One of the people had been killed by some debris. It caved his skull in. When the brunette thought about it now, she wondered if he was the lucky one. Once the drama of the first death stopped, that was when everything went downhill. The first day, everyone was scared, tired, and hungry. However, self-preservation kept them all in the boiler room for a few days. It was on the 6th day that 2 people offered to go out and see the situation. Her father was one of them. Ayam pleaded with him not to, but she was lost on the majority. No one else protested. They all thought it was for the best. So they left. They never came back. That was the beginning of the end of Ayam's world. Days passed and more people tried to leave. Some grew crazy from fear or paranoia. She grabbed an iron pipe to protect herself, praying to the gods to return her father safely. Some people lost their nerve. They ran out of the room and into the darkness. It was only when she heard the sickening screams did she realize something was out there. One of the survivors banged on the door. She screamed for help. Another man opened the door. Ayam would not forget the horror before her when the survivor screamed. A long tendril wrapped around her body. The man tried to help. Believe her, he did. Yet, he didn't seem like the strongest man in the world. The woman screamed before she was pulled back into the abyss. Days passed by slowly. 10 people became 9. 9 became 7. 7 became 3. 3 became 2. All that was left was Ayam and 1 male survivor. The days turned into weeks. Ayam kept herself from nodding off. She couldn't help it. She didn't know the man. Though she liked to believe in the best of people, something made her scared to fall asleep. Unfortunately, her body prevailed and Ayam nodded off for what she thought was an hour or 2. When she woke up, the man was gone. She remembered how short her breath felt. She remembered how cursed she felt. They were all gone except for her. Her prayers had not been answered. Her father had not returned. Whether by courage or stupidity, the ramen waitress decided to make her own attempt. She opened the door and stared out into the darkness. Slowly, she stepped through its veil. Her steps were an echo. Tears fell down her face as she held the iron pipe. She was scared. She could feel something staring at her, observing her, hunting her. Unfortunately, or fortunately, Ayam lost her nerve. She ran back to the boiler room and closed the door. A thudded bang knocked her from the door to the floor. It had followed her. Whatever was out there knew she was in there. It merely waited. Scared, hungry, thirsty, and alone, Ayam hid in the corner of the room. A knock came on the door. "Ayami! Ayami!" a voice cried and cracked. The ramen waitress remembered that voice. It was her father. Despite her excitement, Ayam heard something slithering and slopping against the door. "Ayami!" the voice groaned. She peered from the bottom of the door slit. What she saw made her recoil in shock and terror. Her father stood in front of her. Something latched to the back of his neck, feeding black sludge or ooze into his body. He knocked on the door, desperate for her answer. One of his eyes rolled to the side in its socket. He opened his mouth and something crawled out. Ayam backed away from the door. It moved beneath the door. Like some kind of twisted spider thing, it skittered towards her. Ayam took her pipe and crushed it. She crushed it over, and over, and over until her arms burned. "Ayam me?" the voice groaned. Her father was gone. Ayam tried not to sob and make noise. She held in her grief. She then retreated back to the boiler room. There she hid. The voice went away and it left her alone. As the days went by and her sanity was tested, Ayam wondered how easy it would be to bash her own skull in with that iron pipe. Nevertheless, she couldn't go through with it. She didn't want to die. She wanted to live. She set up a barricade at the front door. That led her to now, sitting in front of her savior, Uzumaki Naruto, and him asking her if she was hungry. She remembered when she looked at him. She thought she was crazy. No one could make it down here. It had to be a lie. She tried to fight. With what energy she had, she fought Naruto. She could feel bad about it now, but that wasn't the case then. It was only when the blonde caught her pipe that she cried. What was the use? She couldn't take it. Everything was shit. Everything turned to shit. If she was going to die, then. Ayam didn't remember the rest. She guessed she passed out because she woke up in Naruto's apartment. She noticed her old clothes were in some dirty clothes hamper. She walked through the room slowly, terrified of the dark. That was until she noticed Naruto's sleeping form. It was real. She survived. It was all because of him, that young boy who stood in the rain, hated by the village. No, I'm not hungry, Ayam replied with her head down. That was a lie. She was so hungry even the table looked appetizing to her, but she couldn't find the will to eat despite how much her stomach growled. She felt like she was about to puke. Naruto stared at Ayam for a little while. Never had he seen the joyous young woman so destroyed. Whatever was down in the Chunin exam stadium had severely traumatized her. He exhaled slowly. Ayam Michin, you're gonna have to eat, Naruto said rather forcefully. Ayam looked like she wanted to refuse again, so the blonde continued on. I know it's hard, Ayam Michin, but this isn't our old life anymore. The world's changed, the village is gone, and anyway, I can't have you getting sick. I'm already taking care of someone else, Databeo. Don't make me mouth feed you. I'll do it, he warned, a flush of embarrassment on his face. Ayam didn't laugh at the ploy. Though she indeed found it funny, she didn't have the heart to laugh at anything. Her stomach grumbled again. She looked around the room and saw the multitude of supplies Naruto gathered. It seemed he was making the most of his predicament. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki waited in silence for the ramen waitress to respond to him. She kept her head down, her hair shadowing her eyes. The blonde sighed and walked into his kitchen. He opened one of his cupboards and pulled out 2 or 3 bentos with plastic wrap sandwiches. Naruto placed 2 in front of Ayam and the other in front of himself. I can't make it hot, but at least it's not cold, he said. He supposed it was rather late to be eating, but fuck it. He was hungry. Naruto ate from the box slowly. He never took his eyes off his friend. Not once did she reach for her food. She sat still like a statue. The young genin stopped eating. He frowned. His first piece of human contact in over 2 weeks. This wasn't how he thought it would go. Naruto, Ayam spoke. The young man looked up from his food. You told me my father sent you to me. He's dead, isn't he? That thing took him? She sobbed out. Her body trembled and shook. She clenched the clothes Naruto made her wear. The Uzumaki boy clenched his chopsticks. His right hand covered his face. He pulled at his cheeks angrily. He's resting, Ayam Michin. And no one can hurt him anymore. I swear, the blonde replied. The brunette placed her head in her hands. Her cries filled the living room. Naruto walked over to Ayam and held her in his arms. He tried his best to soothe her with words. His hands again moved through her hair. He didn't know what it was like to lose a parent, but he knew what it was like to lose someone precious. He too had lost so many of the important people in his life. Even now, the pain was still there for him as well, but he had to be strong. He couldn't afford to be that naive, stupid Naruto that so many claimed he was. He made a promise to himself and to Tsuchi to be better. I'll protect you, Ayam Michin. I promise, Naruto exclaimed. He held her tighter as she sobbed into his chest. After some time, Ayam's stomach growled again. She drove her head into Naruto's chest. She really wished it would stop doing that. It was embarrassing enough to die. The brunette pulled back and turned to her food. She slowly picked up the chopsticks. She unwrapped the sandwich and took a bite. She smiled. It tasted good. For her, who hadn't eaten in 2 weeks, this sandwich was restaurant quality. She opened her bento and proceeded to eat the contents in there as well. That tasted delicious as well. While they ate, Naruto and Ayam traded information. Unfortunately, neither had answers about what happened. Both told the other where they had been when the giant rock fell from the skies. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki offered, as best he could, an overview of the world outside. Acid rain, hot weather, blowing sands, extremely cold weather, and anything else that might be important. Ayam certainly was impressed. Naruto proved himself to be quite capable despite the circumstances. I'll go over my plans with you tomorrow. Now that you're awake, that opens up some options for me, Naruto stated. He was already thinking of the advantages to having someone else conscious in the room. Alright, I'd like that. And, thanks for saving me, Naruto-kun, the young woman replied. Naruto scratched his cheek and chuckled. Why yeah, no problem, he said as he continued to eat. By the time they were done, the blonde gawked when he saw Ayam finish 5 bento lunches and 3 more plastic wrap sandwiches. Where the hell did she put all of that? Thankfully, Ayam had the decency to look sheepish about it. After that, they retired to bed. Naruto turned out the lights and moved back to the couch. With a full stomach, he fell back asleep. About an hour or two later, he was slowly shaken awake. He opened his eyes. What's wrong, Ayam-nichan? The Kyuubi Jinchuriki asked. Naruto-kun, would you please stay with me tonight? I can't sleep, she said. The blonde was going to protest, but he felt the shiver in her hand. He also noticed the sweat on her face. Though it was dark, he wondered why he could see her so clearly. Her eyes darted around the room frantically. She was scared of the dark. Yeah, he said. He got out off the couch and followed Ayam back to his bedroom. Just for thorough sake, he checked Kurenai. Nothing was out of the ordinary, so he left her alone. He crawled into the futon with the ramen waitress. She held him as close as she could. She didn't know why, but he smelled good. As for Naruto, he shivered in embarrassment. Ayam's body was very warm and soft. This is gonna be a long night, he thought to himself. Thankfully, the embarrassment gave way to tiredness. Ayam nuzzled her chin into Naruto's hair while she kept him close. Naruto closed his eyes and drifted off to sleep. The former slowly closed her eyes as well, hopeful that when she opened them this wouldn't be a dream her mind made up. The Uzumaki household slowly grew quiet as the sounds of fierce, cold winds blew outside. The next morning, Naruto spent 1 to 2 hours giving Ayam a rundown of the house and the supplies. He showed her where the bathwater and bathroom supplies were. He showed her where the food, clothes for men and women, and other supplies were stored. He took her from his apartment and into the other ones he used since no one else was using them. Unfortunately, the apartment complex's electrical power was out, so there was no way to heat up the food easily. So, he taught her the trick he used to do so. The brunette once again found herself impressed by the resourcefulness of her young friend. Then again, though the thought depressed her, perhaps a young boy used to living on the streets would have some better instincts in these kinds of circumstances. Once the young man finished the crash course into the tour of his apartment, they decided on breakfast. So, these clothes you gave me. I don't remember putting them on before I fell asleep, Ayam said. Naruto paused in eating. He stared at Ayam's intense gaze. A blush appeared on his face as he turned his head to the side. Why yeah. I changed you out of your old clothes. Look, I had to. Who knows what was down there, and if it got on your clothes? You'd get sick too, then I'd be taking care of Kurenai-san and you. It wasn't I didn't mean, he stammered. Ayam shook her head, a small smile upon her face. I'm joking, Naruto. You don't have to explain. I know you did it for my benefit. I'm sure Kurenai-san will understand as well. If it's all the same to you though, I'll take over washing Kurenai and changing our clothes, she replied. The young Uzumaki breathed easy. He quickly nodded. He had already seen enough nudity to last the rest of his life. Especially from 2 beautiful women like these. Why yeah, you do that. Actually, with that being the case now, I want to go over some things with you, he said seriously. The Ichiraka waitress took note of his gaze and agreed. She continued eating while Naruto pulled out his map. He laid it across the table. Ayam stared at the map. She looked at the many markings the whiskered blonde made on it. All the locations he had been to were listed with some kind of label. Food come back later, more water base? He's very thorough. More than I thought, Ayam said to herself. Her eyes moved to the right, and she noticed the large X across the Chunin exam stadium. A shiver ran through her spine. A prayer to the gods above, she hoped she would never need a reason to go back there. Mostly, I've kept to these areas. I tried to stay close to Kurenai-san since I was the only one looking after her. The Chunin exam stadium was the furthest I ever went. There's still a lot of places in the village I haven't gotten to yet and looted. Most of the civilian district spin, Naruto didn't finish. By this point, Ayam knew where he was going with this. I see. Now that I'm awake. You're confident to be out longer. Do you really have to be though? We have enough right here, she claimed. Naruto sighed sadly. Nothing lasts forever, I am Nichin. Everything we've got here is bound to expire eventually. Plus, my apartment isn't stable. There's gonna come a day where even it's gonna crash to the ground like other buildings. I've got to find us someplace else before that happens. That was why I came to the Chunin exam stadium in the first place. Now that that's not an option, we'll have to look somewhere else. We might even have to leave Konoha, he replied. Though she desired to protest, knew Naruto was right. Though shocked that he would think of deserting the place he called home, she couldn't fault him for the thought. Each time she looked outside, it hammered into her head that her village had become a vessel of the Shinigami. Death and desolation laid everywhere. Had seen the bodies. She saw what Naruto saw, the numerous corpses and bones carried off by the wind. Ravenous tornadoes blew in the distance while lightning struck the ground and trees, creating fires wherever there was wood. The same things. Mumbled. Huh? Naruto asked. The ramen waitress trembled. You're saying almost the same things my dad said, Naruto. He left and didn't come back. What if you don't come back either? What if there's more of those things out there? Everyone's dead. If you die too, then I can't, replied. Suddenly, the ramen waitress stopped. Naruto's hand rested on her shoulder. She stared up at him. His blue eyes stared into her dark ones. Alright then, let's make a deal, I am Michin, Naruto said. The ramen waitress blinked. A deal? She asked. Naruto nodded. Give me a reason to make it back alive, Dadabayo. When I come back home I want you to say, welcome home to me. No one's ever said that to me before. I'll make sure not to die if I get to hear those words, he answered. Despite the sadness running through her, couldn't help but smile. All right. It's a deal, she said. Once that was concluded, Naruto said that he would spend the next 2 days at home. He called it a break for himself. Naturally, held no reservations against it. So, Naruto continued to make plans for those 2 days while took over as Kurenai's caretaker. She would update the blonde on the Jonin's progress. Additionally, Naruto had also been designated as security blanket, so to speak. Her own words, not his. One night, woke up in a violent scream which caused Naruto to bulldoze into the room. Since then, Naruto became the young woman's official bed partner. Indeed, it took some getting used to for both, but it was either this or a nighttime of screaming. Neither desired that. The only problem was, Naruto was still a man, a very young man at that. He and made the silent vow to just never talk about the morning state of men that they encountered together those days. Though embarrassed, was not unused to these moments. She had shared a few awkward incidents that involved her father and wrong place, wrong time moments. Either way, they put it behind each other. Once his 2 days of rest were over, Naruto got dressed in his usual gear. He looked out the window. It was another windy day. Much more ferocious than the last 2 days. A sharp boom of thunder made him jump. His heart leaped into his throat before he breathed easily. The last 2 days almost seemed like a peaceful dream to help him forget about the hell he was willingly walking back into. You have food? Water? Your weapons? Asked. Yes. Yes. And yes, Naruto said as he pulled up the door that blocked the outside. He stared back at the ramen waitress. Her hesitancy was obvious, but she couldn't bring up the words to convey her thoughts. Instead, she waved him off. He placed on his goggles and waved her goodbye. He ran out his door. He hopped on the apartment fence and dashed off through the dusty winds and arid air. The Kyubi Jinchuriki landed on a rooftop. He kicked open the rooftop door and stepped inside. He pulled out his map and grabbed his flashlight. Alright, while Nichin takes care of Kurenai-san, I can head into the Shinobi district. I'll need some scrolls, kunai, shuriken, exploding tags, and anything else I can carry. I could head to the Konoha bank as well. If I'm lucky, some of the storage scrolls should still work. I think I've got my chakra back. Should I test it out? Naruto thought. He stared at the wall. He then channeled some chakra into his feet. He pressed his foot against the wall and tried to climb. HNNNGH. Naruto placed his hand over his mouth to prevent the sound of his pain from leaking out. If more things like that thing in the dark at the stadium existed, then he'd rather not alert them. Okay, chakra's still a no-go, he groaned before he stood up. Alright, with that little experiment out of the way, Naruto marked his map with a marker and placed it back in his bag. He then entered outside and ran across the rooftops. The run to the Shinobi district took much longer than Naruto thought. That was because mountains of crushed homes and buildings blocked many different paths. The sand and wind started to create sand dunes. They covered the debris. In time, Naruto feared that the people who had yet to come into the world would see nothing of Konoha. All they would see was an endless desert and scorching heat. It certainly didn't help that the lightning struck some of the wood. That caused it to burst in flames, and those flames would be carried off by the wind in heaps of black smoke. The flames would latch onto buildings and burn them down as well. Whoever was inside, whatever was inside, it didn't matter. It all burned away and the sand would cover the remains. That was all that would be left. Nothing. An hour of rooftop travel passed. Naruto passed by the exam stadium wearily. Nothing happened that caused him too much concern before he finally made it into the shinobi district. When he landed there, Naruto felt queasy. No, he felt disgusted. No, he felt agony. Yeah, agony. That was a good word to use when he saw the flies and maggots buzzing around the endless piles of broken, torn, and mutilated flesh of shinobi men, women, and children. Hundreds of corpses laid around the area like a flowing river of dried red blood. Arms, guts, intestines, and stripped sinew decorated the homes, shops, and rooftops in some sort of nightmare story that adults tell their children about to behave. The smell was absolutely detestable. Rotting and decomposed flesh laid everywhere. Shinobi of Konoha, Oto, and Suna laid together. Hell, so mangled and torn were the bodies that Naruto couldn't even tell the allies from the enemies. Then, there were the animals. The summons of those killed in combat laid along with their masters. Naruto saw more than a few canines from the Inuzuka clan. Their corpses were stripped of fur and skin which left only a barely recognized skeleton. Some of the bones had obviously been blown away. Some of the innards even started growing some type of mold or fungus spores. Weird, creepy plants started growing from the carnage in front of him. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki held his head down. He had cried enough. Yet the grotesque scene before him made his chest hurt. Well, it was either that or the soreness from his training a few days ago. He'd rather think it was this. The young genin tightened his mask over his mouth. I'll probably have to find a gas mask. I don't want to inhale whatever's down there, Databayo, Naruto thought to himself. Having decided that the blonde ran over a few rooftops until he found a place where the death and guts weren't so concentrated. He landed in the streets. There was no noise except for the wind and howl of the storms. Places where people laughed and enjoyed walks with their families were not but a distant memory now. Naruto stepped through the shinobi district. He picked up fallen kunai and shuriken. So many were there that he had to stop. His bags were already getting full and he had yet to be in a store. On the bright side, he did grasp a few scrolls, but he didn't know exactly what they were for. Finally, when his backpacks were half full, Naruto made it to a shinobi store. The window displays were broken through and glass littered the ground. At least he didn't have to worry about breaking in. Slowly, the blonde stepped over the glass and landed inside. Just like every other store he visited, the store was dark. Broken shelves of kunai, swords, and other precious shinobi weapons laid everywhere. There was a distant howl through the upper levels of the shop that unnerved him. His breath against the cloth of his mask felt warm. He unzipped his backpack and pulled out a list. Okay, first things first, storage scrolls. They're convenient and light. Plus, they store a lot. That could help in keeping food fresh, though I've never tested it myself. Well, it's not like any of the uncooked food I've found has been edible, Naruto thought. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki walked through the room and found the scrolls meant for storing in no time. It was no surprise, they were fairly common after all. I grabbed one of the scrolls and opened it. Yosh! That formula stuff on the scroll is still here. I can. Suddenly, Naruto stopped his thought. He stared at the formula drawn on the paper. Green chakra leaked from his body. Into the air it swirled before it wrapped itself around the pupils of his eyes. The longer his eyes stared at the formula, the more he felt he understood it. Every nook and cranny of the storage formula. Like a voice in his head, he found he understood everything that was being given to him. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki dropped the scroll and it fell with a thud. What was that? He thought. He slowly grabbed the scroll and opened it again. Nothing happened. He examined the scroll for about 5 minutes, but nothing occurred. In fact, he wondered if he hallucinated the entire ordeal. He opened the scroll again, and there was nothing out of the ordinary. With a shake of his head, the young man touched the formula on the scroll. He poured his chakra into it, and he shivered. His hands gained a green aura. It was that green chakra from before. He watched it pour into the seal. After a moment, a puff of smoke threw him off. Yosh! It worked! Naruto thought. On the floor laid 5 kunai and 5 wrap sets, 5 shuriken and 5 wrap sets, and a bottle of soldier pills. Naruto quickly resealed them into the scroll. Yet he noticed something strange. Was the scroll's edge always green? He thought. The sound of a clanging can shook Naruto from his question. Whatever, at least it all worked. Swiftly, the blonde grabbed all of the scrolls he could get from the store. It had quite a few of them too. Enough to fill up a whole backpack. That said, he would have to come back on a second, third, or even fourth trip. Some of the scrolls were too big to fit in a backpack. Still, with what he had, he got to work. He sealed up all the kunai, shuriken, weapons, swords, tags, and other supplies from at least 3 or 4 shinobi stores. Good thing the space inside a storage seal could hold at least a closet full of stuff. That made this venture a lot easier. That said, Naruto began to notice that he hadn't been dreaming or hallucinating. The outline of the storage scrolls started turning green whenever he used his chakra on them. He knew because one had a red design on it. Once he filled it with his chakra, it turned green. He had no answers to why this was the case, but he couldn't stop now. After some time, Naruto decided to take a break. He downed some water and snacked on a bento far away from the shinobi district. He had just finished his lunch when he shivered. "Help me," a voice called, its voice carried by the wind. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki glanced left. He then glanced right. He saw nothing for miles. "Help me!" The young shinobi jumped when he heard a metal trash can fall from around the corner. He stared at the trash can. There were bite marks on it. He then heard something fall over in the distance. Naruto quickly grew concerned. He felt something was wrong. Despite his desire to help or his hope at finding survivors, Naruto worked his brain hard. He couldn't do this stupidly or like he usually would. He had to be careful. He quickly packed up his things and stood up. He then entered the streets once again. He pulled up the gas mask he found in one of the shinobi stores and slowly entered into the valley of death that was the deeper parts of the shinobi district. Due to the mask, Naruto's breath echoed through his ears. Each step, a trudge through some type of body part that he couldn't name. He had his hand on his kunai pouch constantly. He carried over 1,000 weapons and scrolls. Yet he did not feel safe. In fact, he felt less safe than back in the stadium. Naruto couldn't explain why, but deep in this dusty mist, eyes were on him. No, it wasn't like back in the stadium. It was something more sinister, primal, unhindered. The feel of 1,000 eyes on him as he moved. "Help me," the voice called. Its sound was like a cold blade on the back of a hot neck. Ever since Naruto had rescued Iam, he made conditions for himself. 3 conditions that he hoped would keep him alive. 3 conditions that told him if he could stay or run. He inhaled and exhaled. His breath was not, but the wind was cold. Naruto felt his foot squish against something wet, but he was too afraid to look down at it. The kunai in his hand shook from the unease he felt in his body. The dust grew thicker. The sounds of the storms, though he was outside, sounded so far away. The young Uzumaki stopped. In the middle of the road, where mountains and hills of shinobi corpses laid, he heard something clawing against the stone walls in the distance. The dust was thick. It was so thick he couldn't even see through it despite channeling chakra through his eyes. "Help me!" the voice called. This time, it sounded familiar, eerily familiar. In a moment of nervousness, Naruto got out of the middle of the streets. He dashed into one of the alleyways. With his back pressed against the wall, he swallowed the unease in his throat. His grip on the kunai's handle was nigh suffocating. Sweat poured down the side of his face. What if there's more of those things out there? Everyone's dead. The memory of Iam's words made him shudder. He wasted no time. He wrapped an explosion tag around a kunai. He tried not to make any noise. More than that, he hoped the wind would cover his tracks. He grabbed a shuriken. He saw a ken in the distance. He threw the shuriken and quickly hid behind his spot. The weapon struck the ken with a resounding smack before it fell to the ground. He heard nothing except for the sound of claws scratching on stone. It sounded just like that way one of those female teachers at the academy scratched the chalkboard with their nails. He peeked around the corner again. There it went. It was fast, but Naruto saw it. Something on 4 legs, with an arched back, and crooked hands sped through the sand. It was too far away to accurately tell, but the Kyuubi Jinchuriki knew that it wasn't human. What was that? Naruto thought. He weighed his options. At this point, he'd been given enough incentive to call it quits for one day. He didn't necessarily need to extend his hand even further. However, if he could gather information and observe the surroundings, then that would make it easier to come back here later. He quietly took out his map. The Konoha bank was further that way. That was also where the more expensive and top-grade shinobi items laid. If he, Iam, and Kurenai ever did leave Konoha, then the jewels, gems, and ryos stored in the bank might become valuable trading goods with people outside the village. Granted, Naruto didn't have much business sense, but even he understood how many men lost their lives over money. He saw it all the time as he grew up around the red light district. Drunks, gamblers, prostitutes, drug addicts waiting for their next fix, all ruined themselves for money. The bank of a population the size of Konoha, it was worth the risk. Alright, I'll stay for now. Plus, I should investigate that call for help. But why didn't that person I saw in the distance respond to the... Naruto stopped his thought. His eyes widened. He felt something wet soak into his clothes. At first, he thought it was rain. Knowing what he knew now, the rain would have been a gift from Kami herself rather than this. No, what landed on his shoulder was slick, gooey, and sticky. It looked like black saliva. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki's first instinct was to run, to turn his head and see what caused the stuff dripping on his shoulder, but he didn't listen. In fact, he did the craziest thing. Whether by his fear, or the primal instincts within him. He stood still. Against the wall, he did not move. He could hear the beat of his own chest through his gas mask. The enclosed space around his head felt claustrophobic. Rareek! Naruto's ears picked up a new noise. This was no animal's noise. It was a sound he had never heard before. The sound of claws crawled on the wall beside him. The alleyway in front of him felt tight. Blood pumped from his brain to his chest. Help me! The blonde heard the cry for help over the hot air. He tried to tune it out. He closed his eyes. He wanted to steady his breathing. If he didn't, he feared that whatever was around him would hear the sounds in his chest. Slowly, the sound stopped. Naruto opened his eyes. Do not ask him how he didn't scream that day. Perhaps the horror was so great it robbed him of his voice. Perhaps the depths of his mind hadn't processed the warped creature in front of him. Perhaps nothing could surprise him anymore. That last one was up for debate. Either way, the young genin was not prepared to handle the creature that stood in front of him. It had no eyes. Its face was covered by what looked like some excess skin from its forehead. What passed for a mouth was a series of long, black hair-like tissues that flapped in the wind. Long, black claws and bony arms scraped the sides of the wall. It walked on its hind legs. The creature was almost human-like, but it crawled in such a way that would drive most people insane. Its back like that of a lizard. Fresh skin-covered bones resembling scales lined its frame. Tiny points of needle-like appendages jutted out from the skin at unnatural points. Its tail was like an amalgamation of corrupted flesh and bone. All that, and there was still one other thing. It wasn't alone. Two more clung to the walls of the alleyway in front of the blonde. He could also hear about 3 more on the same wall that he laid. It didn't seem like they saw him. They looked around, almost like they were trying to smell something out. Naruto heard the thuds of something heavy. It sounded like rolling balls of some sort. They rolled in front of his gas mask. One of the creatures screeched as the objects fell in front of the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Please believe him. Please believe him. Please fucking believe him that he tried hard not to cry. He tried so damn hard not to cry when he saw the heads of at least 5 or 6 shinobi rolling in a pile by the wind. Their eyes were eaten, their faces hollow with open sockets and tongueless mouths. Naruto recognized some of them, but there was one he recognized the most. He had gone to school with her. She was always quiet. She never could speak up. In my eyes, you're a proud failure. When I look at you, I get an intense feeling in my heart because you're not perfect. Because you fail, you have the strength to get back up, because I believe that is what true strength is. She always fainted whenever she saw him. She allowed him to cheat off her test. She always encouraged him even when someone like Sakura never would. I will never go back on my word, because that too is my ninja way. She had been hospitalized from her fight with Niji Hyuga. Yes, the blonde bit his lips so hard it bled to keep the sobs under control. The head of Hinata Hyuga, the former heiress of the Hyuga clan, rolled in front of him along with a group of other genin that he had gone to the academy with. Her eyeless head and open mouth left no wonders to her fate. The only solace made afforded to him was that maybe she had died before this gruesome fate befell her. Yet, even so, the desecration of her body made him tremble. Kill you! I'll fucking kill you for this! I'll fucking kill all of you, so fucking help me! Naruto thought. He could feel his chakra going wild. Red and green chakra blasted from his body and scrapped the walls. Greawaik! The creatures shrieked their unholy wails in Naruto's ears. Clearly, they reacted to the negative rage in the air while his chakra spiraled out of control. His eyes gained a deep red hue. His whiskers grew more profound. His nails sharpened. He desired nothing more than to rip them all to pieces. Yet somehow he could tell. The one looking through him might have actually been looking at him. Somewhere in its corrupted brain, it knew something was in front of it. It wanted him to attack. He could tell because its twisted mouth formed a cracked grin of malice. It bared its teeth below the black hair strands above its lip. Its head tilted to the side inquisitively. Help me. With every fiber in his being, by the very vow he made for himself to protect Ayame and survive in this world, Naruto closed his eyes and calmed himself down. Kakashi, Iruka, and many others always told him he was too hot-headed and impulsive. Despite the shock, anger, and fear while he stared at Hinata's severed head, he didn't lash out. For one, these creatures had somehow gotten this close to him without him knowing. That meant that they had either tailed him for a while, or they were just that good at stealth. Naruto had to guess on the latter since there shouldn't be a reason why they didn't attack him. Second, he didn't know how many there were. He could see the 3 in front of him, the one standing before him, and the 2 on the alley wall. Something told him there was more. That meant they were pack hunters. No different from lions and wolves. They usually had a leader, but Naruto knew next to nothing about how they structured themselves. Okay, I'll just take into account what I do know. They seem blind. They don't have any ears that I can see, so they must be deaf. So, why are they standing in front of me? What are they waiting for? Naruto thought. He slowly raised his left hand. One of the creatures tilted its head in that direction. Reiawiake? The leader screamed. The one on the wall stopped moving. It was then that Naruto saw it. It was very small, but he could make out the green chakra flowing around the bodies of the creatures. It wasn't individual. It was all linked together like some flaring web of fire. For a moment, the blonde moved his eyes a little. He noticed one of his arms was covered in the same green chakra as the creatures. What? What's going on? Why is my chakra green? Naruto thought as he looked at his hand. While the Kyuubi Jinchuriki contemplated this, there suddenly came a loud rumble. The ground trembled as corpses fell over and buildings crashed into each other. A massive earthquake rolled through the former village hidden in the leaves. The creatures wailed and ran off, leaving Naruto alone with the heads of those who had been killed, and the head of his former classmate. The rumbling grew stronger. Naruto watched in shock as tall buildings broke beneath the weight of their rusted base. They crashed down. Their thunderous might only added to the roar of the shaking ground. It didn't take long for the young man to fall to his knees. His face hit the dirt as the skies grew dark. The land exploded in bouts of hot steam and fire. A fissure line tore through the middle of the shinobi district, swallowing up all the bodies and the fallen buildings. Those buildings that still stood were not safe either. Lightning struck the ground with such fire and fury, nothing in sections of the village could survive it. Not even Naruto was able to get up in time before he screamed as the ground opened up and devoured him. He screamed as he bashed against the side of a rock wall. He grabbed a ledge, but it was too slippery. He fell off and felt the wind blast out his lungs when his back crashed against a pillar of rock. Down and down, Naruto fell. His clothes tore and he tried to block anything from hitting his face. The wind from the wall pushed against his face before he slammed down into the ground below. Even then, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki couldn't stay down. He limped away from the falling boulders and sharp-edged cliffs that fell off the side. Dare he say this was even worse than the time he got pushed off that open cliff by that perverted sage. Naruto leaned against the wall in the dark. The rumbling continued. Between the falling corpses, those bodies being buried beneath mounds of rock and stone from buildings, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki wondered if he really wouldn't see Ayame again. After about 3 or 4 minutes, the shaking stopped. Naruto opened his eyes. He was in the dark. The only thing illuminating his place was the giant hole far above him. Worry for Ayame and Kurenai filled his body. If he had felt that earthquake, then what about them? Kyuso, I gotta get up. Naruto groaned to himself while he clutched his shoulder in pain. With a heavy grunt of pain, he realigned his broken shoulder and panted. Yeah, tomorrow was a day off, most definitely. Naruto noticed the destruction in front of him. A large pile of debris and corpses laid in front of him. When he looked forward, there, almost mockingly, he saw the head of Hinata. Of course, he would have to see it. Why did he have to see it again? Someone had to be fucking with him. The young man turned away. He feared that if he looked at her anymore, he just might take his own life right then and there. That was another one of his friends that didn't make it. Who was fucking left? What was the point in even asking that question? Maybe he was the only one left. Sakura, Sasuke, Kakashi, what would he do if he saw even one of them? Could he even stomach that? For Ayame, for Kurenai, he thought he could. He hoped he could, but he didn't know if he would be able to. Though he hated Sasuke, he didn't want him to die. Sakura wasn't the nicest, okay, she was kind of an ass at times, but it was true she kept him in line. He definitely did stupid stuff sometimes. Kakashi, though he was late all the time, he was still reliable. Naruto stared up at the cavern walls. No doubt they were slippery. It was just like back in the cliff when Jiraiya pushed him off. He had tried to stick to help his fall, but the spikes were too smooth. He had no doubts the same applied to now. Plus, the last time he tried to climb a wall he fell on his ass. He stared at the wall and gathered his chakra. It was strange. His body felt cold this time. It was almost freezing even. He stared at his palm. More green chakra exuded from his skin. Where did this even come from? Had he gained it from trying to unlock his chakra from a few days ago? He crossed his fingers. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, he called out. He felt the chakra spike in his body, but he was down the 30 clones he'd envisioned. What the hell kind of chakra is this? Shouldn't all chakra help make a jutsu? Why can't I do it? Naruto growled out. This felt even worse than back in the academy. Okay, fine. Fuck the jutsu. He channeled the green chakra to his feet. He then pressed his foot to the wall. Gah! Naruto groaned as fell back on his head. In frustration, the young Uzumaki uttered every single curse word he could think of off the top of his lips. Was something actually fucking with his life more than they already had? What chakra doesn't allow someone to do the most basic shinobi shit? Naruto had done this exercise plenty of times. Why were so many things going wrong today? The blonde dropped to his knees. No, that wasn't the question. It was all wrong. Everything about this world was wrong. The earth, his life, his friends, the village, it was all wrong. He raised his fist to hit something, whether it be the ground, the wall, or himself. He lowered his fist. Sigh, what was the point in even getting angry? It wouldn't bring his friends back and it would stop this ceasing dread deep in his mind. All he could do was press on. Suddenly, Naruto cursed and slammed his neck. Something bit him. He looked down and he frowned. A bug? Man, good thing Shino's not here. He'd kill me for this, Naruto thought. He then jumped when he felt something crawl on his leg. What the fuck? Naruto exclaimed. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his flashlight. When he turned it on, he saw an abnormally large centipede slowly moving up his leg. Hey, get the fuck off me! I ain't your blood bank, Databeo, Naruto claimed. He kicked the arthropod away from him. It bounced on the ground before he heard it creak and skitter. He jumped and smacked the side of his cheek. Another insect. Suddenly, Naruto felt dizzy. He fell back against the wall. A horrid realization rose through his body. He felt something crawl on his arm. The blonde genin smacked his arm against the wall. This time a large leech was knocked off, blood seeped from the side of his shoulder. His fingers twitched. This time, dread filled his body when he smacked his arm. Another blood-sucking insect. Only this time he hadn't felt it. It was like the feeling in his body had left him. Worry filled Naruto. He had to get the hell out of here. Naruto wiggled his body free as best he could. He didn't stop to think about the who's or the what's. He just went. Fuck the chakra. He grabbed 2 kunai and stabbed them into the wall. Over and over, he stabbed them as he pulled himself up. He shivered when he heard something creep and crawl in the walls. The harsh buzzing of large insects roared in his ears like blasting fans. His body sore and his senses leaving him, Naruto continued to climb. He realized he must have gotten bit somewhere because he nearly slipped. He was having a hard time judging how much strength to use. It felt like his arms were going to sleep. Something bit his boot and he kicked it off. He didn't know what it was, but he wasn't taking any chances. Sharp buzzing filled his ears again. He looked and he gawked. Something with the elongated beak of a hawk, arms of an insect, and wings of a bat flew at him. It screeched so loudly he was surprised his ears didn't bleed. Naruto took out a canister of oil and a match. He lit the match on fire with the wall. He then filled his mouth with oil and spat it into the match. A wave of flames danced in front of him as he burned the numerous bugs in front of him. The flying beast screamed at him before it flew back. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki continued climbing. His breath was hot. His vision was dazed. The light out of this hole he'd found himself in merely seemed like a tiny bulb. He couldn't feel his fingers. He actually slipped and fell off about 3 times, but he pushed on. He couldn't die here. He wouldn't. He had a reason to go back home now. In an instant, the blonde grimaced in pain. He grabbed his shirt and pulled it up. Another leech. He grabbed it and yanked it off. He threw it away and he continued climbing. Don't ask the Kyuubi Jinchuriki how long he climbed. He wasn't sure. All he knew was that through the pain, dizziness, and deliriousness, he was only a few climbs out of the fissure. He climbed as the buzzing around him seemed so far away. In fact, it sounded rather pleasant to fall asleep to. It was pretty nice. Wake the fuck up, brat. Are you trying to get us killed? A violent roar deep in Naruto's mind jolted him awake. His body was woozy, but he felt something in his right hand. He turned his head and the shock nearly made him fall. Squirming in his grasp was the large insect that had been waiting so patiently to pluck his flesh from his bones when he fell asleep. It was official. Uzumaki Naruto was fucking fed up. A blast of red chakra exploded from his body while green chakra circled around his eyes. He stared at the large insected. Fuck off, he snarled. His chakra flared violently. Like a maelstrom of angry tails, they bashed around the fissure walls. Bugs were lit aflame and fell down into the hole where he just was. With any strength he could muster, he slammed the bug into the wall once, twice, thrice. It screamed and screeched in anger at him before he ripped off one of its wings. He then threw it down. This is the last time I help you, brat. If you want strength, then work at it on your own, the voice said before it faded away. With a sigh of tiredness and filled with stress, Naruto climbed out of the fissure. The hot wind and dusty air blew in his face while he panted. He could barely hear the sounds of thunder outside while tornadoes rampaged in the distance. The young man grabbed his backpacks and walked away. An unholy scream made him move a bit faster. Absently, he heard a sharp sound of falling rocks and quaking earth from the fissure he'd just left. A heavy crash was heard behind him, but he didn't turn around to see what. He doubted his legs would have listened to him anyway. How much time passed? Minutes? Hours? Days? Naruto didn't know the answer to those questions. All he knew was that he made it to his apartment complex. He slowly walked up the stairs and stumbled to his room. His body banged against the railing while sweat dripped from his head. He banged on his apartment door. That was all he could manage before he fell over and passed out. Before his world went black, he heard Ayame scream. "And Naruto?" she exclaimed. X. Naruto opened his eyes. He absently heard the sound of acid rain outside. The harsh sounds of blowing wind and steaming rain rolled him this way and that. He noticed his vision was no longer blurry. It was dark outside. Feeling returned to his hands and arms. A few places on his body had been bandaged as well. He slowly leaned up. He was on the futon that he and Ayame used for sleep. He survived. Once again, he survived. He held up his arm. Green chakra. He'd have to learn how to use it. It wouldn't do well for this house if you fall as well, Naruto. You should take better care of yourself. Surprised by the noise, Naruto turned in its direction. His eyes widened when he saw Kurenai smile from where she laid on his bed. She didn't seem fully awake. Like him, her eyes were a bit hazy. Her voice was also raspy. The blonde stuttered, his voice slurry. Indeed. I understand I have you to thank for my well-being. It's good to see a familiar face, Kurenai said with a tired smile. As much as Naruto wished to say the same. Unfortunately, he couldn't. Thoughts of Hinata and Kiba quickly filled his head. He held his head down. Kurenai-san, Naruto tried to speak, but no words came out. He opened and closed his mouth so many times he wondered if he looked like a gaping fish. For once in his life, the young genin was at a complete loss on what to do or say. What was he supposed to tell Kurenai? What could he say? Hey, Kurenai-san, sorry I just found 2 of your genin cell. Yeah, they're both dead. Sorry about that. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki finally just held his head down. Never mind. I'll tell you later, he said pitifully. Kurenai stared at Naruto curiously. She didn't miss the looks of horror, shame, and guilt written across his face. She'd seen the look many times in her career as a kunoichi. She saw the eyes of a very tired and crestfallen shinobi. She saw someone who had seen too much and received too little. She wondered what he had to say, but she could already tell it wasn't anything good. Though this concerned her, Kurenai didn't push it. She was never the type of person to force an issue that no one wanted to bring up. She'd woken up a bit before Naruto returned home. She made some small talk with Ayame about the world. She didn't know much. The last thing Kurenai remembered was fighting about 5 or 6 Otosuna shinobi in the streets. Then, a rock the likes of which she had never seen crashed into the earth. The ground shook like it was being torn to pieces. The pain and injuries she endured had knocked her out. She couldn't even say she woke up because her vision was blurry. She felt like she was constantly on the line between life and death for over a week. When she fully became aware of herself, she was in Naruto's apartment, under warm blankets. Kurenai asked about the Otosuna invasion of Konoha, but Ayame merely shook her head. She opened the windows and told Kurenai that even if the invasion force won, there wouldn't be much for them to gain from their victory. The genjutsu mistress would not forget the shock on her face when she stared into the vast nothingness of her village. Skies filled with putrid greenish-yellow dust clouds, sounds of drumming thunder, flashes of purple lightning, and tornadoes swirling angrily in the distance, she saw them all. Kurenai questioned if this was actually the end of the world or not. She asked I am question after question, but each only seemed to stress out the ramen waitress. The look on the poor young girl's face. She looked absolutely terrified and psychologically scarred. The jonin quickly swapped topics. She asked I am if she had rescued her, but the girl said that she hadn't. Kurenai was in Naruto's bed long before I am got there. He was the one who had rescued her and nursed her back to health. To say Kurenai was stunned was an understatement. Forgive her previous assumptions, but she didn't expect such a thing from what the academy deemed a failure. Hell, even his win against Kiba astounded her. His win against Niji, well, she basically just threw out everything she thought she knew about Uzumaki Naruto. She now saw what attracted Hinata to him. He might not be a genius by society's definition, but not many people could think and plan the way he did. Kurenai also noticed that her old clothes, covered in blood, were near a dirty clothes pile. I am claimed that Naruto found her before the ramen waitress. If that was the case, then Kurenai was going to close her eyes and sigh away the embarrassment. She had a feeling she knew where her thoughts were going. If Naruto had done what she thought he did, then she'd let it go. Oh sure, the embarrassment was more than enough to make her want to punch him until his mind erased any memories from his head, but she was more sensible than that. She knew when her life had been saved. She would be grateful for that. She tried not to hold it against him. Though she did wonder how many days he had to care for her before Ayam arrived. She probably wouldn't ask. Anyway, she thought of her team. She hoped they were alright. While Kurenai didn't believe in playing favorites, she did admit that she felt closer to Hinata than to Kiba and Shino. Asuma always liked to joke that Hinata's demureness brought out Kurenai's maternal instincts. The jonin played it off, but she wondered if he was right. Kurenai hoped she would get better soon, then she could be out there with Naruto. She would look for others and restore whatever order there was to this cursed world. The door opened, which interrupted the silence in the room. Ayam stepped through. Naruto-kun, you're awake. Thank God, she said before she threw her arms over his neck. I am Nichin, that hurts, Naruto exclaimed. Embarrassed, Ayam released him. Sorry. Your bag was kind of heavy, but I moved it to the living room. How are you feeling? You passed out right in front of the door, she replied. Naruto sighed. Let me go wash up and get some food first. I'll go over everything else later, he said as he stood to his feet. He wobbled for a moment, but he found his footing and left. Ayam and Kurenai glanced at each other. Did I interrupt something? The former asked. I honestly don't know, the latter replied. The blonde opened the door to his bathroom and gave himself a wash. Truth be told, he didn't remember the bath that much. Lukewarm water, a bar of soap, and a brush of the teeth, that was all he got until he sat at the table. His brunette friend entered the living room and placed a bento in front of him with some chips and juice. Yet, he might as well have not even seen it. All he could see was Kiba's corpse and Hinata's head, both moaning from the afterlife, cursing him for his weakness. Naruto, what's wrong? Obviously something's bothering you, Ayam said. The light of a candle was all that kept them light as they sat together. Naruto shivered. Nothing wrong, Ayam Nichin, he said slowly, almost as if to make himself believe what he was saying. Don't lie to me, Naruto. I've known you most of your life. I know when something's bothering you. Tell me, the ramen waitress insisted. I said it's nothing. I'm fine, Databeo, he returned. No, you're not. Yes, I am. Naruto-kun. I said I'm fine, damn it. Naruto screamed as he slammed his fist on the table. He widened his eyes. Slowly, he looked up and he dreaded the shock, hurt, and pain on his friend's face. Naruto's face contorted in sorrow. He slumped in his chair. His head bashed on his table. He hoped the light of the candle was dim enough to hide his face. How do I tell her I am Nichin? Naruto asked, his voice laden with unbearable anguish and frustration. Ayam's gaze softened when she heard the distress in Naruto's voice. His words became uneven and croaked. His sobs reached her ears. How do I tell Kurenai-san that I saw 2 members of her team dead? Naruto asked. The brunette widened her eyes and her hands covered her mouth. What? Naruto found 2 members of that Jonin's team? She quickly understood what unnerved him so much. Her shock over his outburst quickly faded away while she watched him clench his fists. Kiba and Akamaru are gone. They're nothing but bones now back at the stadium. Hinata, Naruto spoke of Hinata's fate, and I am sat utterly stunned. No, how could such a fate befall such a sweet little girl like that? First, the village. Then, her father. Now, Naruto's friends. Everything was coming down around them. The grief and sorrow threatened to overwhelm them as the unforgiving wind blasted outside. Yet both stiffened when they heard violent coughing from around the corner. They turned and they noticed Kurenai wheezing in pain as she clenched her chest. She coughed so hard blood expelled from her mouth. Naruto and Ayam quickly moved to help her. Whether she knew it or not, Kurenai dove into Naruto's chest and wailed, her coughs spasming her pain in hot bursts. Kurenai felt her mind break in two pieces. She heard the scream from Naruto and got up to investigate. She just made it around the corner when she heard Naruto speak. Hinata, she's dead. She was beheaded and an earthquake dragged her and the shinobi district into the ground. The Jonin felt a deep pain in her chest. Like she had been stabbed with a hot kunai, she dropped to the ground and coughed. Her croaks were so hard that she thought her heart would burst from her chest. Tears fell down her face. Images she wished not to see of her student's body rampaged through her mind like a moving movie screen. Hinata, Kiba, they were both dead. They both. Kurenai gripped Naruto's t-shirt as she cried. She screamed and screamed, but the winds blotted out her voice. She had failed them. Why was she still alive if she couldn't even protect her own students? What the fuck was even going on in this forsaken world anymore? The Jonin felt the bile rise in her mouth. It mixed with the blood and violently ruptured over Naruto's clothes. She gripped him hard. Her Jonin strength was not to be underestimated. They were gone. They were gone. Why were they gone? T, that's it. I'm in hell. We're all in hell. Kurenai laughed to herself before her world became dark. She fell in Naruto's lap and passed out, the stress of her sickness, and the pain too much for her recovering body. The next time Kurenai woke up, it was morning. She slowly opened her eyes. She turned her head to her right and noticed Naruto sleeping on the side of the bed. She frowned for a moment until she looked up at the ceiling. Hinata, Kiba, two of her students were dead. Plus, the news of what befell the former was unlike any she'd ever been given. The Jonin thought of her students. Hinata always had confidence issues due to the strict nature of her family. She wasn't the most talented person out there, but she had her own strengths and resolve. Kurenai always wanted to try and give Hinata that reason to strive to do better. It was by now she understood that the reason was the boy sleeping at the foot of her bed. Then, there was Kiba. Oh yes, there was Kiba. The headstrong, brash, sometimes inconsiderate alpha of the group. For all his faults, Kiba was a hard worker. Kurenai admitted it was rather hard to teach him, Hinata, and Shino since the three were so attuned to their family style. None of them were adept at genjutsu either. Still, there were other things she tried to teach them. Kiba took to the fighting well. Of course, she disapproved of his trash talk, especially to a comrade like Naruto, but his fighting genius spoke for itself. Had he lived to his adult years, he would have become one of the most feared taijutsu shinobi in the world. She didn't hear any news on Shino, but she was out of hope at the moment. It probably wouldn't be long before his body turned up somewhere too. Kurenai wasn't even sure she could stomach the thought. Just thinking about Hinata and Kiba was enough. Kurenai violently coughed. She placed her hand over her mouth while her fate worsened. The pain in her chest was greater than any pain she'd ever felt. When she looked down at her palm, she saw how stained with blood it got. Would this be the same blood on her hands if she held Kiba and Hinata in her arms as they passed away? A hand shook Kurenai from her thoughts. She turned and noticed the Kyuubi Jinchuriki was awake. He grabbed a wet rag and cleaned her hands. He was silent as he worked, and she was as well. The Jonin had to admit that something changed about the blonde. Last night, his eyes were filled with dread and weariness. Now, he was filled with a deep, burning inner fire that she'd not seen in many people. Also, she wasn't sure why, but she could see something swirling around him. No, perhaps see was the wrong term. She could feel it deep within her. Something in his body was unnatural, yet it exuded a mysterious strength, all the same. How are you feeling? Naruto asked. He touched her forehead. Kurenai stared at her sheets. Was that what you were going to tell me last night? That Hinata and Kiba were dead? She asked. Without speaking, Naruto nodded. He didn't trust his voice to not crack if he did otherwise. I see, the Jonin said. The blonde genin stood up and walked out of the room. Later, Ayam returned with him. The ramen waitress sighed. Well, she's got a fever again, but I think the stress got to her. We don't have a doctor, and the Konoha hospital's been torn down. I think we can only pray that she doesn't have any internal bleeding, Ayam said. Naruto slowly nodded. All right. Later in the week, I'll make a trip to the hospital. There should be something over there since over-the-counter stuff isn't gonna cut it. I am Nichin, give Kurenai-san plenty of fluids. She'll need more rest. I'll be outside, the blonde said as he turned around. Kurenai groaned. I'll be fine. I've rested enough. The Jonin exclaimed. Kurenai-san, Naruto-kun's right. You can't get up yet. The fact that you even got up yesterday wasn't good, I am protested. Despite the pain, Kurenai leaned up and pulled the covers off. She swung her legs and landed them on the ground. No, she didn't want to rest. She didn't want to go back to sleep. If she did, then those visions of things she didn't want to see would enter her mind. She wobbled to her feet. She was a Jonin. Kurenai had to take charge. She had to be the one to lead. She needed to protect this genin and this civilian. For her young charges who died, she had to be better. She had to. Kurenai-san, please lay down. I am pleaded. I said I'm fine. I know what my body can and can't do. She panted. The Genjutsu mistress panted. Her vision blurred. She stumbled her way to the door. Just before she reached it, she felt the very minuscule amounts of her chakra fade away into nothingness. For an instant, her heart stopped. Her instincts flared. They told her of danger, a great pressure that made her fall to her knees. When she looked up, all she saw was an explosion of green aura surrounding the Kyubi Jinchuriki's body. That mysterious aura flared like a great firestorm while it sucked away the minimum amount of chakra she was even blessed to have. She tried to speak, but no words came out. When she stared into Naruto's eyes, gone was their blue color. A shade of deep green replaced them. In those eyes she felt small, insignificant, weightless. Get in bed, Kurenai-san, Naruto said, his tone neither angry nor harsh. It was merely spoken like it was just another day. Kurenai shivered. Was it that weird chakra? Was it because she felt delirious? She didn't know why, but his voice sounded like a crashing chorus of thunder. Whatever strength she had was used to barely keep her conscious. How could she have known that the young boy's chakra slowly engulfed her own eyes, filling her body, and making her quiver? The words that came from her mouth formed before she could even properly register them. Yes, Naruto-sama, she uttered. The room remained quiet for a moment. Ayame stared at Kurenai in shock, and so did Naruto. Both failed to properly understand the words that came out of her mouth. Unfortunately, they couldn't think on them because Kurenai's eyes rolled into the back of her head and she passed out. She fell on top of their futon. The ramen waitress moved. She touched the Jonin's cheeks. The brunette breathed a sigh. She must have been more delirious than we thought. Don't worry, Naruto-kun. I'll get her into bed, Ayame said. Alright. Just give me an update when I get back, the blonde said. Ayame nodded. With that done, he closed the door behind him, grabbed his things and walked outside. What the hell was that? Naruto thought as he jumped on the railing. The dusty winds blew in his face before he dashed off. Naruto ran to a corner of the village he knew was deserted. Kurenai's odd behavior aside, the Kyubi Jinchuriki had one goal for today. Hell, a goal for the rest of the week. Find out what the hell this damn chakra was good for. That was 2 times Naruto almost lost his life. He didn't know how he got home both those times. Granted, the one with Ayame he felt he'd done pretty well, but yesterday was the worst he'd ever felt. Fear stopped him from acting out against those things back in the Shinobi district. He felt powerless when all those bugs nearly overwhelmed him. If this was the case, then why was he even alive? Why did he even save Kurenai and Ayame? If he couldn't protect them, then they'd all be dead anyway. If he kept this up, maybe he wouldn't be returning home at some point. I gotta figure out how this stuff works, Naruto thought. Hours. Many frustrating hours passed by for Naruto as he tried to make the green chakra within him work. Yet the first day he went to bed with nothing but frustration. That said, he quickly cataloged what went wrong. So the chakra, for whatever reason, wasn't used for making jutsu or for climbing onto surfaces. He tried the Kage Bunshin many times. Like a lot of times. A lot of times. He even tried the summoning technique, but that provided nothing as well. This led him to believe that whatever this chakra was, it wasn't useful for combat. Then what the hell is it used for? Naruto grumbled to himself as he went to sleep. The second day was when Naruto decided to try something else. Instead of using the green chakra to fuel its own power, he decided to try using it to fuel the powers he already had. Now that was where the interesting stuff happened. The green chakra was indeed chakra, but it was a different type of chakra. It was like, damn it, there was some sciencey term for it that the blonde couldn't place. Well, fuck it, for lack of a better term, it was an intensifier of sorts. Since jutsu didn't work, for whatever reason, Naruto decided to channel the green chakra directly into the reaches of his body. He'd seen Lee and many other wielders of taijutsu do this. Yeah, it was like normal chakra, it could enhance natural abilities, but this was even greater than what normal chakra could do. When the blonde threw a kunai, it sailed for miles. When it impacted a building, it brought that building to its knees. He could see further than the great walls of Konoha. He could run as fast and as far as he thought possible. He could lift and grab things heavier than he could without the chakra. It enhanced all of his natural abilities. That had to be it. Yet there was a problem. This green chakra, the backlash was immense. When he had released himself from its effects, he nearly passed out. His chest burned. His arms and legs ached. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth, and his eyesight blurred for about an hour. The backlash was just as great, if not greater, than when he first used the Kyuubi's chakra. All he knew was that, despite his joy at having something he could use to fight, he couldn't fully rely on it. It was rather wild and tamed. Each time he used it, he felt something primal, bestial, hungry, powerful seeping into the very edges of his mind. It only ever spoke one word. Anything else was a large, heavy, primordial roar just like the Kyuubi's. Dominate. That word Naruto remembered so clearly when he rested. It didn't sound like some pass of thunder. No, it sounded like a pass of wind, a common sound, the type of voice you'd associate with someone unimportant. Yet, it was always there, always waiting, always watching, always tempting. For the next 5 days, Naruto worked with this green chakra. If nothing else, he prided himself on his work ethic. When he wanted to train, he'd fucking train until his arms ached and his legs fell off. Yet, no matter how much he trained, he couldn't get rid of the backlash. In fact, the longer he used it, the longer it got. Unfortunately, it rained for one entire day, so Naruto was stuck inside. Kurenai stopped bleeding, but Ayame continued to give the woman treatment. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki oversaw some of that, but he mostly spent his time in the living room. This was because he'd been using the green chakra for something else. Naruto meditated. Yeah, it doesn't sound right. Nevertheless, exercised his mind with the intensifying qualities of his new chakra. Naruto saw memories of all the things he'd experienced. Some he'd like to forget. Others he wished he hadn't forgotten. With the green chakra amplifying his brain and his memories, Naruto remembered all of the lessons he got from the academy. Every taijutsu lesson, every ninjutsu lesson, and every genjutsu lesson. Everything seemed to intersect with him at different points in his life. The green chakra massaged his brain, stirred up everything he'd ever done, seen, smelled, heard. Some were too far back to recall. Yet, there was one he remembered. How did he even forget it? The Hokage residence. Despite the severe headache, Naruto walked over to his map and wrote on it. Now that he thought about it, the Hokage mansion had been destroyed by the stone faces. However, in case of invasions, there were select bunkers hidden throughout the village. Naruto didn't remember that, but back when Iruka was talking all about those safety procedures, he mentioned them. The stone faces, for example, were one of them. Clearly, it wasn't the smartest one, but in order to get people there in a hurry, it was the most optimal. That said, Naruto remembered there was something beneath the Hokage mansion because he snuck down there once. He'd been caught by the Sandaime and gotten in trouble. When he asked what was down there, Sarutobi said, "A place I hope that'll never need its lights turned on." Naruto didn't know what that meant, but he'd like to try now. Well, that said, the damn mansion was rubble now. How could he find it? Still, I guess it's worth a look, he thought to himself. The next day, Naruto went out and simply surveyed everything. On the roof of a building, he stared at the shinobi district through a pair of binoculars. Those creatures continued to patrol the area. He watched them closely, carefully even. Kakashi was always on about that know your enemy stuff. No better time to know his enemy than now, he figured. The massive earthquake fissure from a few days ago eagerly showed its after effects. Buildings had been bashed into each other, the hills of bodies slumped over like slabs of meat for a butcher, and debris littered the ground. Eyeless and tongueless heads rolled in the wind upon the sands of the walkways. A rain tarp over his body to protect him from the wind, Naruto wrote down what he observed from these creatures. For lack of a better term, he just decided to call them bone crawlers. It wasn't hard to figure out why. They fucking crawled, like everywhere. Clearly, they didn't eat. Or he assumed they didn't eat because he'd watched them for at least 6 hours, but they never bit into any of the bodies that littered the ground. They were very adept and nimble. Like a shinobi, they could leap across buildings without sight or sound. How they did this, he didn't know. They also typically traveled in 5s. 4 usually followed behind 1. They made noises or clicks from somewhere in their bodies. Unlike last time, none of them screeched, but he assumed that was because there was no threat. Instead, they seemed to rip the heads off the decaying bodies and take them somewhere. As far as he saw, there were only those 5. He waited to see if more would come, but they never did. Yet, as he observed them, Naruto stared at the growing mist hanging over the shinobi district like a plague of death. His enhanced mind pondered their movements. Why are they staying over there? Aside from that thing in the Chunin exam stadium and those bugs in the fissure, I haven't seen anything else out here. Why don't they just take over the civilian district? Naruto thought to himself. If he treated them like animals, then he guessed it could be territory. They had what they needed, so maybe they didn't need to expand anywhere else. Maybe there was something here he wasn't getting. Not once, not one single time, they didn't even consider coming to his part of the village. In fact, dare he say, they almost seemed adamant to avoid it. The thought that there might be something in his part of the village did worry him, but what could he do? He couldn't exactly go out finding it. He'd had enough close calls for the entire week. Once the day was finished, Naruto moved back inside. He noticed Kurenai was at the table along with Ayam. Both greeted him. Though the Genjutsu mistress was still moving sluggishly, the fact that she was moving at all made Naruto glad. Kurenai had stopped coughing blood after a while, but it was clear the news of Hinata and Kiba's deaths shook her greatly. "Welcome home, Naruto-kun. What have you found?" Ayam asked. "Yo, I am Nichin, Kurenai-san." "Well, I've got a bit of an idea," Naruto said as he took off his dusty clothes. He took a seat in his chair. "Oh, before that, Naruto-kun, the water jugs and bottles in one of the apartments are starting to get low," Ayam said. Naruto pulled out a notepad and wrote that down. There were still plenty of places to loot water jugs and bottles from. "Alright, I'll take stock when I can," he replied as he took out his map and laid it on the table. Ayam passed him a bento and some juice. She gave one to Kurenai as well before she got her own. The 3 stared at the map while Naruto tapped one of the spots he marked with a pen. "Kurenai-san, you're a Jonin, so you'll probably know. I know there was something beneath the Hokage mansion. Gigi told me about it. Can you tell me what it is?" he asked. Eyes turned to Kurenai. She stared at the spot Naruto marked and sighed. "Normally, I would have said that's confidential, but I don't think anyone's gonna blame me if we don't follow protocol. There's probably no one left alive with the authority to court-martial me anyway. Not like there's a place to hold one either," she replied slowly, almost depressingly. The black-haired woman rolled her neck and leaned forward. "Hokage-sama said it was a series of tunnels that led to deeper places in Konoha. I've never been down there myself, but I know all the major shinobi facilities in the village are linked to that tunnel. The Umbu headquarters, the Forest of Death Tower, and other important facilities are connected to that tunnel. It also leads to some other places, but I wasn't authorized to know," Kurenai answered. Naruto and Ayam blinked. There were places that even Jonin didn't know about. "You're going to investigate?" Kurenai asked. Naruto swiftly nodded. "Yeah. The apartment's getting weaker by the day. It won't be long before it falls down. I've got to find us another place that won't get melted so easily. That was why I went to the Chunin exam stadium where I found Ayam Nichin. I'm the only one who can actually fight right now, so it's only natural that I should go, right?" he asked. Kurenai had to admit she was impressed. Was this really the kid that dove into combat without a plan? He definitely wasn't what Kurenai thought he was. Well, they say adversity builds character. "And should you encounter any more of these creatures mutating in the village?" Kurenai asked. Both noticed Ayam shiver in dread at the thought. "I've found a good way to fight them. Besides, I'm only investigating Databayo. Besides, with the fall of the stone faces, I might not even be able to get in through the Hokage mansion. I sure don't know where the Umbu headquarters are. To get to the Forest of Death, I'd have to go all the way to the Shinobi district again. I don't know what the earthquake might have done to it," he replied. "But how are you going to?" Ayam stopped when Naruto smiled at them. "Don't worry. I'll figure something out. I swore to protect you both, and that's what I'm gonna do. I'll find us a safer place," he said earnestly. So honest was his reply that neither Kurenai nor Ayam knew how to combat it. His words felt reassuring, even in these deplorable circumstances. It felt nice to them both. "And if the Hokage mansion doesn't work out?" Kurenai asked. Naruto tapped another part of the map. "Well, there's the red light district. I know a few casinos with underground bars and entertainment tunnels. The way the world is now, staying somewhere high isn't gonna help us. Hell, sometimes I'm nervous with us staying on this floor," Naruto replied. Slowly Kurenai nodded. That made sense. Not knowing when some of these buildings would fall and crumble into dust at any given moment. "Naruto, how do you even know about the red light district?" Ayam asked, an odd smile on her face. The blonde rolled his eyes. Please, I am Nichin. You're talking to the guy who didn't have a bedtime growing up. Saw many things, worked for some of the places too, he said. You worked in the red light district? I asked. The young genin shrugged. The stipend for orphans wasn't as great as you think it was. That barely covered the cost of my textbooks, shinobi gear, and other stuff. I needed the money for food and other clothes. How do you think I got so good at dodging chunin and jonin? I did rush jobs all the time. No one's gonna suspect a kid of carrying cargo. It wasn't until I became a genin that I made enough money to quit the lifestyle, he explained. The ramen waitress and Jonin glanced at each other again. Neither knew what to say to that as well. Kurenai felt rather bad. She would like to help, but she was still incapacitated. By Naruto's accounts, the environment was rougher. She was already sick. Hell, she couldn't even make it to the door a few days ago. Though her fever had lowered again, she knew it'd be some time before she started throwing kicks and punches. Plus, there was something that disturbed her. No matter how hard Kurenai tried, she couldn't gather her chakra. She thought that her chakra would have returned by now, but she didn't even feel a percent of what she once had. Hell, the chakra she could feel was the bare minimum that a human needed to keep themselves alive. She actually tried to gather her chakra, but that caused a pain so intense she thought she almost died. It felt like her body nearly exploded from the inside out. So great was the pain that she passed out for an entire day. She wondered if Naruto felt the same thing. Surely, he tried to cast jutsu at least once. That said, Kurenai kept it to herself for now. They were already worried about her enough. She didn't need to add to it. Besides, judging from the bags under Naruto's eyes, he was truly trying hard for their sake. With the planning done, Naruto spent the rest of the day going over what he observed of the bone crawlers, trained, and gave Kurenai and Ayam a wireless radio that he found along with headsets. He'd found them along with other things in the shinobi district. With this, at least he could stay in contact with them. Naruto also set up a training board for Kurenai. It wasn't much, but at least she could practice her throws. He also took the time to help Ayam practice with Kunai and Shuriken. They couldn't take any chances. She'd have to be capable just like them. When he was gone, he tasked Kurenai with overseeing the brunette's training. No one argued. And Kurenai, when you get better, I've got something I want to show you, Naruto said. Her interest piqued. The jonin quickly nodded.